2022, and act further extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, which includes an extension until July 15th of 2022 of the remote meeting provisions of March 12th, 2020, executive order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. This meeting will be accessible to the public and public comment via the Monomoy Regional School District Zoom meeting link. At this time, I'd like to call the meeting to order at 6:35, and I will take a roll call. Ms. Stout? Ms. Stout will be joining us remotely this evening. Ms. Gaines?
Present.
Ms. Gray?
Present.
Ms. Rogers?
Present.
Mr. Russell?
Present.
Ms. Henderson?
Present.
And the chair is present. I think we were just missing Ms. Tolley. Next item on the agenda, we are thrilled to have the Monomoy Regional High School Jazz Band this evening to perform for us. And at this time, I'd like to welcome Wayne Nuth to the podium to introduce the jazz band. Thank you so much. Actually, if you don't mind going to the podium, because then the public can hear you on the microphone. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much for inviting us. We are very excited to be here. This is only our second performance in front of real people. So just a couple of words before we begin about the jazz band. We meet once, sometimes twice a week for what amounts to about 20 minutes a meeting. So it's really not a lot of time to get a lot done, but you'll see that we have accomplished quite a bit, I think. Everyone you see here, all these students are volunteers. They don't get any official credit for this. They're here because they like playing music. They like experiencing what jazz is. So that's quite amazing that they're all volunteers. And we're from 8th grade through 12. So how many 8th graders do we have? Let me see hands. Yes, okay, so you can see that those are all new students this year. 10th grade, 9th grade, 11th, and 12th. Okay. All right, so as you can see, the size of this group has grown considerably since the last time anyone has seen it, and we're so excited about that, to see so many students interested in doing what they're doing. Now, yesterday we got word that our drummer that has been with us, Simon, for the last couple of years is sick. He's not here. But this year we got a new drummer. He's in 8th grade. It's Joseph Thomas. Joseph, would you stand up, please? So, and he has bravely said, yes, I will make this happen. So he has never had a drum lesson. He has just picked up what he knows through the other drummer, Simon, and he's just doing a fantastic job. And we're so happy that he's stepped up to the plate for tonight. Otherwise, we wouldn't be playing. We're going to play two tunes for you. The first one is titled "Song for My Father." It's written by a very famous jazz piano player, Horace Silver. And on this tune, we're going to hear two brothers, Thomas on guitar and Chris on keyboards. Thomas is in, I believe, 10th grade, right, Thomas? Yep. And his brother Chris is in 8th grade, and believe me, I couldn't think about doing what they're going to do when I was in 10th grade, let alone 8th grade. So they are fantastic. You're going to hear a group solo in both of the tunes we're playing. That's something I composed for the group because no one here has really had any experience improvising, as we do in jazz. So I write the improvised solos out so that they have a chance to experience a little bit of what it might feel like to play an improvised solo. So here is Song for My Father. This is a cowbell, by the way. You know what to do if you can't hear it, right?
More cowbell.
More cowbell.
was Song for My Father by Horace Silver, and that was Chris and Thomas Marcio, keyboard and guitar. Can we have a round of applause for those two? And we'd like to do one other number for you. This is an original piece of mine I wrote a couple of years ago. It's a lot of fun to play, hopefully to listen to as well. I call this one The Moon Cussers Shuffle.
Great job, everybody. Thank you so much for sharing. Remarkable musicians. Keep up the good work.
Amazing. Wow, that was amazing.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, go any way you want.
Nice job, Charlotte.
Wow, wow, wow.
God, they're amazing. We're just going to give them a couple minutes just to clear out a little bit, and then...
Oh, this one? Yeah. All one? Oh, wow. Okay, thank you for that. Put it back.
Drum down, drum down.
All one.
Sticky note on that.
And while they take the drum set down, which is completely fine, we'll just kind of trudge along here a little bit. We do not have any high school student representatives this evening. Oh, we do? Oh, she's here. That's okay, thank you. I was told you weren't here, now you are here. So tonight we have one of our high school student representatives here.
Sorry, I left you to talk to them about that.
Yeah, just introduce yourself, and yeah, here we go.
Hi everyone, my name is Samantha Good. I'm the student school committee representative. Happy holiday season, first of all. It's been a really busy month. November kicked off with the Credit for Life Fair hosted by Cape Cod 5 volunteers. The senior class was able to participate in a monetary simulation where they selected a job and lifestyle, then had to navigate managing their financials with numerous games and locally sponsored prizes at the end. Our fall sports teams finished up their seasons with field hockey making it all the way to double overtime in the semifinals against Uxbridge in a hard-fought game. Winter Meet the Coaches Night was hosted on November 15th, and the winter sports are now underway. As for the arts, the fall play of The Brightest Thing ran from November 17th to 19th and was a great hit. Our clubs have been very active as well. On Halloween, our creative writing club, Sanskrit, visited the elementary schools and read their own stories to kindergartners and first graders. The following week, the Political Action Club hosted a congressional debate between U.S. House Rep candidates for the Massachusetts 9th District, Bill Keating and Jesse Brown. The entire 8th grade class attended, and students from other grades signed up to watch the debate during JASA. The Political Action Club members acted as the moderator and panelists, also developed the questions for the debate. In addition, Key Club hosted a fundraiser that raised almost $400 for Miss Rose, a Shore faculty member who was recently involved in an accident but is thankfully on her way to recovery. Students of the Shore program have also been getting involved and making a difference in our community, with internships at the Cape Cod Ballet Theater, Yarmouth Veterinary, Capabilities, Low Tide Farm, and Nursery and Shark Bites craft fairs. To conclude, it's been a great month, and there's much more to look forward to with the holidays right around the corner. Thank you all, and have a great night.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Happy holidays to you, too. Next item on the agenda, public comment. Is there anyone here for public comment? Okay, seeing none. We're going to move on to the approval of the minutes from our November 3rd, 2022 meeting. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
And a roll call. Ms. Stout?
I wasn't present, so I abstained.
Ms. Games?
Aye.
Ms. Gray?
I wasn't present, so I abstained.
Abstain. Ms. Rogers?
I wasn't present, so abstain.
Mr. Russell?
Aye.
Ms. Henderson?
Aye.
Ms. Holly?
Aye.
Ms. Long is an aye, and motion carries. I was counting, and I'm like, uh-oh, and I missed you, sorry. Okay. Next item on the agenda is to welcome our new Monomoy Regional School Committee member, Miss Betty Gray, representing the town of Chatham. And I'd just like Betty to have an opportunity to introduce herself to the public and to the rest of the committee, and you can say whatever you like, little or more, or whatever you want. And welcome.
Thank you. Short and sweet. I'm Betty Gray. I'm happy to be here. And I look forward to working with everybody. I have about 18 years in Latham Centers and 26 plus years in human resources. So
Great, thank you. And Betty, you're going to learn quickly because they're going to come out and they'll tell you, but when you have your mic, you want to put it in front of you because they have a hard time hearing us at home. So just make sure it's directly in front of you when you talk, and you can always push the button off when you don't want to be heard. All right, next item on our agenda is the Class of 2023 Open Campus Pilot Program update. And here's the crew. All right. And just introduce your names as you start to speak. That would be great.
Hello everyone, good evening.
My name is Christy Beckley, and I'm the Vice President for the class of 2023. Behind me are the officers. This is Jack, the President, as well as the Treasurer, Olivia Willis, the Media Secretary, Allison Morris, and the Secretary, Lucy Vaughn. Thank you for adding us to your agenda tonight. Last month, as you all know, we came before this committee with the idea of establishing a pilot open campus at Monomoy. We've taken into consideration everyone's input over the course of the past month, including Dr. Carpenter's, Ms. Police's, Mr. Alexander's, class of 2023 families, your suggestions, and the students themselves. At this time, we would like to share with you the parameters for the open campus pilot program that we've created, as well as the liability waiver for the open campus pilot. Right now, Jack will share the results of the parent survey that we sent out a while ago, while Olivia and Allison pass out folders to each of you containing the documents that we put together.
Good evening. My name is Jackie Skatis. I'm the class of 2023 class president. Sorry. So one of the things you guys asked us to do for this pilot was to get a parent survey results. So we did a Google form and sent it out to all the parents. It was scaled 1 to 5. 5 being the most comfortable, most in agreement, with 1 being the least in agreement or the least comfortable. So we asked parents, how comfortable are you with your student being able to leave campus and return to school during a day 1 open campus day? We had 12 people who strongly agreed with this and they're very comfortable with it. 2 people agreed and only 3 people were very neutral on it. I trust my child will follow all school and open campus rules when they are unsupervised off campus. 14 people strongly agreed with this, with only 3 people being neutral. I trust my child to drive other students if they are off their junior operator license and or have the option of driving with others as part of the open campus pilot. 13 people were strongly agree with this. Only 1 person agreed with it. 2 people were neutral and only 1 person disagreed with it. The next question was, I trust my child will not be late returning to school when they leave school during open campus, with 10 people who strongly agreed, 5 people who agreed, 1 person who was neutral, and 1 person who disagreed. An open campus program, Monomoy Regional High School, every day 1 of the schedule will be beneficial to all students. 7 people strongly agreed, 5 people agreed, 4 people were neutral, and only 1 person disagreed. I agree that academics and discipline will be considered as part of being able to participate in open campus. This was 100% in agreement. After this, we had an open comments for parents who leave a comment or concern about open campus. We were glad because everything that they left comments on had been addressed. So one person asked, what reasons would a student have to leave? And we talked about the fact that this is for seniors. It's an activity that we haven't really had anything for our class yet as far as like something to give our class. I mean, every class gets something every year and we haven't had anything yet, so this was kind of our proposal. Opportunity for students to kind of get some fresh air, grab some lunch, grab some food, at least once a week. If not, a day 1 wouldn't even run that week. And then another parent asked, is this during certain blocks or classes such as seminar, and is it available to all students? And we said it's during JOSM, which means it is available to every student. Someone said that they were worried about inclement weather and bad decisions being made during open campus, and like, would the school be able to take it away? And we said yes, of course. If the roads were unsafe or if the school had any reason to cancel open campus, we could do that, no problem at all. And after this, there were no concerns, and everyone who answered the survey was actually in agreement. So the last one said that I believe that a certain age students should earn the privilege to be able to go off campus during free times, provided they have shown academic responsibility. And on the next slide, it was just all in agreement, parents leaving their comments. So right now, I'm actually going to reintroduce Chrissy. She's going to talk about the parameters of open campus and like the fine details about it.
So last time we were here, we were told to sort of tighten up what we kind of would envision open campus to look like at Monomoy. So these are the parameters that we came up with regarding how it would be applied to our school district. So starting off,
It would be held during day one Jocelyn advisory. It would be held for the entire duration of the Jocelyn period, and it would be offered only to seniors. Anybody who wanted to participate in Open Campus, any seniors, would have to sign up for the offering using MyFlex Learning, a technology we already have in place. Another thing we had was that students should be passing all classes to participate in Open Campus. Students have to have somewhat consistent attendance. Students cannot walk anywhere on campus other than to and from the vehicles they're going to be using for the transportation. So they couldn't walk to Brooks Park or anything like that. All students would have to be in a vehicle, and faculty would oversee the entry and exit of the students participating. Another thing we had was that students may drive other students, but only if they're off of the passenger restriction of their junior operator's license, or if the passenger is over 18, according to the law of Massachusetts. We actually said that this would be with parents' permission only. So on the liability form, which we're going to talk about a little bit later, there's actually a part where parents can check off whether they're okay with their student driving other students, even if they're off their passenger restriction. And then the next thing is that students who would come back maybe late, they would have their Open Campus revoked, or would face consequences determined by the school administration. And then any violations of off-school rules, off-campus, would result in appropriate disciplinary action by the school. And as Jack was mentioning, there were concerns about bad weather, and obviously Open Campus could be revoked by the school at any time or day, depending on bad weather or school assemblies or anything important happening during that JOSM. We also listed a few places around us that are in close proximity to the school where students could go. As you can see, there are many different places. And so Dunkin' Donuts, the Seal Pub and Cafe, Ruggies Breakfast and Lunch, House of Pizza, J Bar, Pizza Shark, Hot Stove, tons of different places that students could go that are all in close proximity. And we could even collaborate with some of those local businesses in the future. So now I'm going to hand it back to Jack to talk about the liability form a bit.
So this liability form for Open Campus is nothing new to Monomoy. We're taking it right from the internship program and actually changed the language to be more specific to Open Campus. The only added section or change component is going to be on the last page, where it's talking about the junior operator's license, and parents, if they have any ownership of the car, have an input on this because it is the parents' car if they own it, and they should have a say whether their son or daughter is driving other people. So we added that part. But other than that, this form is taken right from the internship program, and it's been in use for the internship, and it's been working so far. So why change something that's already been fixed? So that's as far as the liability form goes. We're going to open it up to clarifying questions and any major concerns, but this is what we are submitting as a whole to be voted on for Open Campus. Yes, I don't know.
Okay, great, thank you. Ms. Tolley?
Thank you so much. I appreciate the work that you all have done and the data that you've collected and presented to us. Like, really good job on that. I do have a question. One thing I was really curious about is the decision to include that students will not be able to walk anywhere or go to Brooks Park or the bike path or things like that. Can you explain a little bit more the rationale for that piece being in the perimeter?
Yes. So this was actually originally we did have that students could walk, but it was brought up by our misplaced Mr. Alexander that it would be more unsafe to have people walking around because that would be too much to keep track of, and to have people kind of walking to Brooks Park and walking around the campus while also having faculty observing and supervising the parking lot would be too much to handle at one time, and that's where we kind of declared it to be unsafe. Because then you have to overstaff the faculty to be looking around the school and making sure everyone comes back from wherever they're walking to, versus having staff assigned to the parking lot already and overseeing the entry and exit of people participating in Open Campus.
Thank you.
Ms. Henderson?
So there's only 17 responses to the survey. How many, because you sent it to senior parents, right? How many seniors do we have?
120.
120. Okay, so not a great response from parents.
No, I mean, as far as responses go, we couldn't do anything more to get more responses. We did have a staff member send that out to everybody. I mean, other than sending it directly to their email, we can't like force them to take a survey.
Right.
But we did have it open for some time for people to respond. It's unfortunate that we got such little responses, but I mean, it's been in the Friday Focus, it's been out there, so it's just lack of people responding.
And we think that those who feel passionate about it, like if they have a strong opinion on it, they would have responded to the survey, whereas those who are kind of neutral would probably be the ones that just didn't.
Mr. Russell? Oh, sorry, Mary, you have another question.
Just
Sorry.
one more question. For the faculty overseeing the in and out, is it a sign-in, sign-out situation? Okay.
So we were going to utilize MyFlex Learning, which has been active for some time now. That keeps track of attendance, but we also have Mr. Alexander and Officer Clark already assigned to the back of the school to actually oversee the parking lot. I mean, they're already back there throughout the year. This would just be them in charge of the parking lot, which is like no added, nothing added. They're already back there.
Perfect.
So, yeah.
Perfect.
Mr. Russell?
Thanks, Madam Chair. Good job, kids. It's been maybe a month, 4 weeks, since you first came to share the idea. I'm kind of a reluctant giver. I asked several questions a month ago, and it's I think you've come a fair distance. I like the idea of a senior privilege. I really am very reluctant to launch something like this that would include 9th graders, 10th graders, 11th graders. A quick question aside. Staff presently have duties out of the parking lot?
Yes.
I see head nods. Okay,
Yes.
good. New to me. That's good. Another question I would have a concern around open campus parameters. Students must have consistent attendance. After 15 or more unexcused tardies, you know where that's coming. To me, if a youngster has 14 late to schools, I don't know how he or she would be given the option to get back in his or her car and go to Ruggies.
This was taken right from the handbook, so it can be easily changed. We just needed somewhere to start, so we went right to the handbook, got that number, and we utilized it for open campus. If the school committee wants to change that, we're very open to that. That was just a base number that we could go off of.
Part of my questions are directed towards creating what might be called rewards to seniors. Absent that, I see us, the prime reason we're trying to do things that would appear to be boosts to kids would be to improve learning. Can anyone argue against that? In other words, the whole idea of being here for 6.5 hours is to improve each youngster's individual learning, no matter where they are. You have in here youngsters in the senior class would be judged by good behavior. What would be good behavior?
That would probably be judged as far as conduct, which can be tracked through Aspen. If a student has bad conduct or is seen regularly skipping class and already dodging academics, that would probably be bad behavior. And if a student is consistently in class, has good conduct throughout school, and their grades reflect that, that would be considered good behavior.
Okay, good answer, Jack. I would urge the writers, when you go back and maybe edit some, just like 15 unexcused, and I'm not going to be the one to say it should be 3. But I must say, if youngsters at senior level are getting discipline referral forms, there must be a way to tally, and they might be passing their subjects. I can't picture being a member here to say, like, I can't picture why they would be driving at 11 o'clock to go down to wherever, under those circumstances, if a youngster is struggling with behaviors in class. So you might want to look at that, or however you feel about it. I, too, I'm somewhat disappointed in the senior parents, and I know a couple of them, that the response is so meager. And that's got nothing to do with you guys. You organize this quite well. I just find it difficult with 120 boys and girls and their mums and dads that's 17, 18, 20, whatever the number was, for such a critical sort of suggestion that this would make us better learners. So, that's an editorial. I mean, there's nothing you guys can do about that, but maybe the principal and whatever can come up with a way that we get a firmer parent input supporting this idea. And lastly, the other suggestion, if you guys launch this to begin with the senior privilege, and on day one, just like Jocelyn, I think we would want a yearly report or a half-a-year report to the school committee, because we're on the line too once we say yes. And those things happen. Maybe walking is safer, but to have 50% of the cars in the parking lot who are maybe driven by seniors leaving one day a week and then something happens, there's going to be a lot of how come. Thank you, that's all.
Thank you.
You ready, Jack?
I'm ready.
You're ready. I know you are. Okay. Yep, I see your hand, Sharon. So my first question is, and it was kind of answered, and some of them are going to be rhetorical questions and some not. Someone will be assigned during JOSM hour to the parking lot. So we're talking about the back parking lot. Someone's already there. We talked about signing in or signing out. For me, it's a safety issue having kids coming and going from school for the reason if we have an emergency during that JOSM hour and we have students that are not in the building, we need to know who they are and if they are physically here or not. You could potentially sign up for JOSM and to be off campus and then not go. But if you're not accounted for when we have a drill or something emergency happens and you guys are over on the field, no one's looking for you. And maybe something's happened to you here. So we need to have some type of a sign-in, sign-out system, whether it's a sign-out sheet with that teacher who is at the door when you leave and when you come back, or maybe we have something more technologically savvy. I understand the My Flex Learning, that you can sign up, so we would know who's signed up to go, but we would need some type of a check system, in my opinion, of who's physically leaving the building or not. My next, I guess, question or statement, when someone signs up on My Flex Learning to go off campus, you're saying students must have consistent attendance, i.e. if you have 15 or more unexcused tardy, students will lose open campus as outlined in the handbook. Understood that completely, except who's regulating that, who's monitoring that? Are you not allowed, if you go into My Flex Learning and I'm Jackie and I have 16 tardies, will it not let me allow to select open?
Correct.
Correct.
Students now have their attendance tracked, and if they are tardy enough, they will get a Saturday school or an in-school detention, so that's already being tracked.
So it would be blocked, like you wouldn't even be able to choose it? It's already part of it. Perfect, love that. One of the other kind of contradicting things I understand here is that a lot of your presentation last time was justifying the need for open campus, justifying the need for a break, to get outside, to walk away, to be able to come back, to go home. There were lots of great reasons. But I struggle with, we're now saying they can't walk anywhere or go anywhere. The only way you can leave is if you're getting in a car and driving away. And I have a problem with that because it defeats a lot of the arguments you had for the reason to want open campus. And it kind of discriminates of those who don't have vehicles. So how do they utilize open campus if they don't have a vehicle? And I also understand the reasons behind why Ms. Police and others are saying I can't just have kids walking around the property, without supervision. It makes complete sense to me, and I support that.
I think that's a good point about how some kids may not have cars or might not have access to that, and that's one of the reasons why we decided to make it possible for students to drive other students if they're off of their passenger restriction.
Correct. So that would bring me to my next point, and certainly you can, but what if you don't have a friend that has a car? It's just not that simple. Ms. Police, did you have a comment?
I just want to make one comment about and I think it's a good one, about the outdoor offerings during JOSM. So we do have supervised outdoor options during JOSM that are already supervised. What we didn't want to do is add additional unsupervised options. So there are places where kids can go supervised that are offerings for kids to sign up outside.
Got it.
So that already does exist. I think we wanted to start small, and if it's something that we felt that we could build on, we would certainly do that, but in order to manage it, we felt that we wanted to start with one thing. But I did want to clarify that there are options for kids to go, like there's a walking club. There are options for kids to go to the turf, but they're supervised with a staff that has put it into MyFlex Learning, and kids sign up. So
Which is, yeah.
That's already there. I just wanted to.
No, that's perfect. And I think it could simply be addressed by rewording, maybe a little bit of rewording of how, because the way I read it was you can't utilize open campus unless you have a car. Like that was my interpretation of it. So maybe rethink about what, if you're leaving, you can't walk, or, you have to be in a vehicle. My next comment was actually going to be on students may drive other students, but only if there are passenger restrictions for their junior operator's license. We can't regulate that. We're not the police. And I don't expect anyone who's on duty on JOSM hour out in the parking lot to do that. That's just not in our purview. So I don't think you necessarily have to have it on there. I would put a note in there, we acknowledge, or we want to remind everyone, if you're on a passenger restriction junior license, you shouldn't be operating the vehicle with anyone under the age of 18 or whatever it is. It could be a disclosure note. It could be part of a permission slip that a parent signs, acknowledging they understand and their student understands that they aren't allowed to operate the vehicle under that provision. But we can't regulate that, and I don't want to put that on anybody, liability-wise, to leave the building and have to follow who's getting in what car, and let me see your license, and how old are you? Obviously, some of you guys are able to as seniors, but some are kind of on that cusp. And then you said students who come back to school after the designated end of time or JOSM will have their open campus revoked. Again, that's a sign in, sign out piece, so that would kind of go into that one. And then it says revoked, but like for how long? Is it just like the next time you can't do it? So just details. Think about, is there going to be, and this actually goes into one of my other questions, is it kind of seems like it's going to go into a policy. It's going to have to be some type of a policy, which probably would have to come back to us. But when you guys are writing this document, a little bit more detail in there. And also, any violations of school rules off campus during open campus will result in appropriate disciplinary action by school. I'm not sure if there was an example of that or what exactly that would entail, but I'm not sure that we can, unless it was.
No, I think you can. I think
okay.
I think it's still the school day. It's like a field trip, right? I think any code of conduct violation that happens outside of school during our school day, I do think that we have jurisdiction over that, and I think that it would be important to follow through appropriately as the handbook dictates. I think that's what they were trying to say.
So any violations of school rules, again, verbiage, during this period, this JOSM selection, again, it's just how you write it, because these are the things I think of when I read it. And then open campus may be revoked for any reason as seen fit by the school. Do we have a policy on revoking things in the policy handbook already that we could reference? You can put a hyperlink there and reference where that policy is. That would be super helpful. And then you also, at the top, it says after 15 or more unexcused tardies, students will lose open campus as outlined in the handbook. I'm not sure where this is applied. It was just taken out and put in here. It is in our handbook, but where do we apply?
I think they use that as an example.
Yeah.
I don't think that we've gotten as far as, okay, if you're tardy this many times, you lose your, I think they were using that as an example because it is in our handbook for students that are tardy 15 times to school. It's a Saturday school. So I think they were using that as an example that they pulled out of the handbook.
Right. So one of the repercussions of being tardy is now you lose the privilege of open campus. Okay. And then I think that's all I have for you for now. Ms. Games?
First of all, building off of Jackie, some of what Jackie just shared, I'm wondering if we're thinking about the walking, If there's a partnership we can have with the community center across the street, or maybe the library, if somebody just wants to get out and have a walk, can we just partner with the library staff to let them know we might have students during this time, that sort of thing, or the community center. So that might be an expansion to what you're already doing on the campus. So that's just a thought. My quick questions are really kind of about timing and logistics. So I was looking at JAWSOM, so it's 12:09 to 1:03. That's 54 minutes. So I'm wondering, and then the other one, early release, 49 minutes. So if you're thinking you might go for a quick lunch, I'm looking at some of these places: Harwich Port Pizza, Cape Roots, Ruggies. So, and it sounds like you're going to have a conversation with some of these places. I'm wondering your thoughts about working with them on a quick lunch. Because let's just say you get there, you put your order in, it's taking 20 minutes to get to you. I don't want students to feel rushed, feel like they have to get in the car, drive really fast back to, so be thinking about, those types of scenarios when you're talking to the restaurants. Can they provide you with a quick lunch, a special menu, something like that? So that's my question there. And then going back to this whole thing about the signing in and signing out on the JOL situation, I did have who will monitor, but I think you've already answered some of that, because I was wondering, so they're going to sign out at the back, because I was wondering if it's going to be somebody at the front, somebody at the back, are they going to know who's on JOL?
So let me jump in on what we sort of envisioned. So the senior parking lot is in the back, as you know, and it's already supervised by Officer Clark and one of our assistant principals. So we envision that they sign up. They sign up as a JAWSOM offering, but additionally, they have to sign in and out on a clipboard with one of our assistant principals as they leave and as they come back. And this is something that when I worked in a neighboring district, we did it with great success, and it was monitored. It was the same exit and entrance. They came in and out of the same door. It was Fridays only. They signed in and out. And we sort of envisioned the same thing, but because it happens during JAWSOM, we would add it as an offering, and then they would sign out additionally.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I think that was it, and I'm just going to say, as I think I said last time, I like this idea, and I like that you brought it to us, and I think I told all of you that in 1981 and 1982, I had this, and I loved it. And I love the freedom of getting out during lunch hour as a senior. So I would like to see this work out. I'd like to see us have a trial and see where it goes. So that's just kind of where I'm leaning.
I just have one quick question. Do you guys have key cards? I don't know, only staff has key cards, right? Because all I'm thinking, like, that would be so cool if you could, if when you left, you scanned it, when you came in, you scanned it, and then we just shut them off at 3:15 because we don't want you coming back in the middle of the night. But I just thought. Anyway. Miss Dolly.
So building a bit off of what Tina had just said, I wanted to echo and remind folks that, during the Portrait of a Graduate process that is happening, some of the really critical traits and dispositions and skills that have been articulated throughout focus groups have very loudly called for the sense of personal responsibility, executive functioning skills, agency, time management, critical thinking, problem solving. To me, having 54 minutes to go somewhere and get your lunch and get back in time, that's a great challenge for somebody to figure out how to do that at 18 years old. So I think this project, a pilot project like this, will really set students up to be developing those skills that we're hearing from the community are critical. And that's how Monomoy is going to define success, is if students have those skills. And, again, we haven't finished the portrait yet, but those are just really, really pretty strong traits that are being called for.
Great, thank you. Ms. Stout?
Yes. There are many things I want to say. Jackie and Tina and Danielle covered many of them. I just want to, because I'm on virtual, I just want to make sure you know some of the particulars. this is only one day a week, like Fridays or something, not every day a week?
It's,
And it's only for seniors, do I have that correct or not?
sorry, it's every day one, and we have a 7-day cycle. So that would actually mean it would be 1 day a week or less. Some weeks it wouldn't even run because the day one wouldn't fall during our 5-day cycle. So it would be 1 day a week or less depending on the week.
And just a senior privilege, not 10th and 11th?
Correct, just the senior privilege.
Okay. I commend you so much working on this, because I know that last time you came, there were so many concerns or worries that a lot of us had about it. Most of all that is addressed already by other people. I agree with especially that I don't want kids that are driving cars to be pressured by other kids that they're not comfortable with having in their car because they need a car to get into. I do like the idea for the kids that don't have a vehicle or a good friend that's so glad to take them, have something set up so they're not left out. But I really do think that this is a great idea. My familiarity with seniors in the springtime when I used to work at one of the high schools is that it's hard for kids in the springtime to want to be in school. So I'll just caution you on that. I think there's a lot of pressure on the seniors to do this and to do this well, because then it could continue down as a tradition. So I'm really respecting the work that you've done, and I hope it's a big success, and that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Mr. Russell.
The second round, thank you, Madam Chair.
Mm-hmm.
I commend again your answers, and Jen, thank you also for and you can credit my reservations to my age. I really, not that I think the worst, what could happen, but when we broke into the idea of Jocelyn hour, there are always a concern about how many more minutes do we take away from a class. Let me preface also, I really also am not convinced that dozens and dozens and dozens of children in this school have such concern around mental health and related to the school itself that I need a break to go. If so, we're not doing something right. That said, Jen, to you, and a past experience question, the professional staff who are salaried, do they tell someone they're leaving during their so-called...
They sign out.
They sign out?
There's a sign, yes.
Okay. My last comment, and it shows reservations, and there's no solution in my mind that the seniors, maybe X number of them have cars. And that'll be good because you can scoot around town to wherever, the beach or the restaurants to get, and probably and hopefully come back in time. If they are, Jack, in that pool, when they arrive, but they actually get here earlier than the 50 minutes. Low help, why would that happen? But let's say, where would they report to?
They would report to their advisory, and that's part of why we're doing it on day ones, is because students stand to gain very little extra help on day ones, because that is a scheduling advisory day. There is no JOSM on that day. There's no offerings by teachers to get extra help. Everyone on that day is scheduling themselves for the week. So we already have a place automatically assigned to us, and that's why if we came back early, we would just go to the teacher who is automatically assigned for us. So.
Okay, thanks, Jack. In my last comparison of my dis-ease, X number have cars here. For the good fortune of working hard in the summer, grandfather has an extra car, whatever the reasons are, and that's all new to me, but that was a different time. So X number of kids at the senior class have cars. I've been on the committee for so many years, and I think it will never go away, but it's not an all-kid thing. Many times we have great trip ideas, China, Costa Rica, et cetera, et cetera. That it's a group of kids and a teacher who's interested and willing, but it's never everybody, because everybody can't what?
Afford it.
They can't afford it. And that's how a lot of public schools do it. It's the only way we can do it, because we don't have public money to say, all the kids come forward who need to go and we'll give you half of it. So you have a fundraiser, you do or you don't. And we have 7 kids, 9 kids go, and we hype the China because it's a good thing for the school. That's kind of my mind, a little twisted. That's how kids with cars are. I'm pleased, I'm happy for them. But it's that, we're really talking to the carpool kids who have cars. And if we eliminate having someone jump in the back seat and go for 45 minutes of a break, I don't know how that all works. But I hate to think this idea is contingent upon, well, only those with cars in their seniors section are really going to be able to avail themselves. So I haven't really made my mind up yet, and I'm trying to be open to it. But those are some of the questions that I can't answer in my own mind that I'm comfortable with.
Dr. Carpenter?
Yeah, I actually appreciate that the proposal that you brought forward has flexibility, that a student who doesn't have a car but has a friend who does have a car can take advantage of this. I do support the proposal with maybe 2 little tweaks or 3 that I'll bring up. Philosophically, I'm somebody who believes that we, as administrators, and I'd argue a school committee, have 2 choices we can make. We can put in place practices that presume teens will make good decisions and that will set forth expectations and that our teens can rise to the occasion. Or we presume that teens will make bad decisions and we set forth practices that never allow students to rise to the occasion. And I think we have a school culture that is more the former rather than the latter, and I'd like to see us continue moving in that direction, because I do fundamentally believe that teens, if you set high expectations, will live up to it. That being said, I think the little tweaks that I would recommend, I would have a little line in here that describes the sign-in, sign-out piece so that there's clarity there. I would add on the JOL piece, and I would agree with Ms. Long that that it's not ours to necessarily police the JOL, but having lived and being an administrator with Open Campus, when a student violates the JOL, they violate it because everybody in the car comes back in the back of a cruiser, because the police officer can't let you continue along the road with students in the back of the car. So we end up knowing, and I would just suggest that the little clause that I would add to that, it just says that if you violate your JOL, you lose your privileges. That this, again, it's like we're expecting that you're going to rise to the occasion, not sink. And along that line, I would kind of agree with Mr. Russell and others that have brought up the 15. I would say the 15 tardies is sort of a low bar. And I think that a proposal like this, you should set forth something that rises to the occasion, not is sort of the low bar. So come up with something that makes sense that you're rising to the occasion.
I'm going to Ms. Rogers and then you, Danielle.
Okay. Great presentation. Thank you for everything that you did, putting out the survey. I know that took a lot of time. And kind of going off of what Danielle said, as part of the Portrait of a Graduate, this does touch on some of the things that we're hearing from our research. And next year, you're going to be out in the world. So I see this as a great opportunity to get some practice in these real skills that you're going to need. As far as the car piece, that's my only concern. And so thinking about what Tina had said and brought up, maybe if there was some partnership so that somebody without a car that doesn't have a friend with a car or doesn't, the friend isn't out of the JOL, they could go there. That way it's still a fun opportunity, the off-campus opportunity, like going to Brooks Free Library or going to the community center. Just something, a suggestion, but otherwise, really well done. Thank you.
Ms. Pelly.
So as someone who has almost suspended my senior year of high school for tardiness, I agree with raising the bar for the privilege to be 8. I mean, I don't know what the sweet spot is, but I think 15. There's a lot more learning around time management that needs to happen. I think if someone is having that many tardies, I don't think it's a fair expectation to have for someone who has demonstrated that they have a problem getting somewhere on time. I don't think it's a fair expectation to imagine that they will rise to that occasion. So I think raising the bar for the number of tardies is, or I think you understand what I'm saying. Raising lower. Yeah. And then
She says, yay, tardy.
Circling back to the concern that I'm hearing, and I think we all have around the equity of this privilege. And I think during your last presentation, the idea was raised to consult with the equity task force about this to see if there were ideas, solutions, ways that that could be addressed in this. I'm just wondering if that happened, or how that could be more addressed, because I'm hearing that is a real concern for folks.
And do you guys want to answer that question, or is it not a rhetorical question and just something to research?
Well, I am curious, because I think we did talk about doing that as part of when you would come back.
I mean, to be perfectly transparent, short answer, we did not. But what I'm kind of discovering is that there's kind of an obstacle here, because I'm hearing from the school committee that we support students driving other students so that people without a car can benefit. But then I also am hearing that we can't enforce or we can't regulate the JOL. So as a student, I mean, I'm only 17. I don't know how to fix that gray area of students driving other students is good because people without a car can benefit, but then we can't seem to regulate JOLs. So that seems like it's an issue, and I'm going to need help solving it. So
yeah. I think that's why collaborating and reaching out to the equity task force could be a one way to problem solve. There may be solutions that just haven't been thought of yet.
Just for 1 second, Jack, I think the answer to the question is, what we're saying is, you don't have to regulate the JOL. It's not your job, and it's not our job to regulate the JOL. And when I talk about your verbiage in your presentation, sometimes you leave stuff like that out because it's not necessarily relevant. I can't tell you how many people go in your car. You know how many people are allowed in your car. You know who you're legally allowed to drive. It's not it's not the staff's responsibility to check your ID and make sure you can take so-and-so. So by saying, yeah, we're fine if you want to drive someone else, I think what we're saying is we're okay with people leaving campus, but we don't have to have the detail in there that you're allowed to drive other people, because I'm not your parent. We are responsible for what happens in this building and on this property. And as Ms. Police reinforced, other things that may happen off property, but when it comes to the law and your JOLs, so maybe that piece actually isn't even in there, because that would help you with that contradiction, right? It wouldn't be contradicting. We're saying, yeah, it's okay if you go off campus and you use your car to drive. Whether you choose to drive under your JOL illegally, that's on you. We certainly could put, like I said, an asterisk down there as a reminder, no one should be operating a vehicle with people, or on your JOL. Absolutely, I think we should. I think we're responsible to do that, but we're just saying we can't regulate that for you. Does that make more sense?
It does.
Yes. Okay.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Mr. Russell.
If I could echo what she mentioned, it's a matter of some delicacy, you folks with us, advisor, to work this issue out. And there is no quick answer, because personally, I'm not looking for a a sentence that would create clown cars, where you have.
Right.
So absent that, how do we make it fairer for the good kid who's trying hard senior year and clears all the other issues, but has no friends with cars, and also doesn't have a car? So.
Ms. Games? So I got an idea, and I'm just going to throw it out, and you all take it and maybe think about it, because it might answer, I hope, some of what we're raising here, and it might not. But if you live in a big city, you might take the bus to go somewhere, and you've got to follow the bus timeline to get back on and get back where you're going. So I don't know if it's possible, but I'm going to ask you to look into it, that we have a shuttle bus or an activity bus that comes on this day, and they pick up in the back at this time. You pick two places. It's going to drop off at Harwichport Pizza at X time. It's going to drop off at Ruggies at X time. And it's going to be back around at X time and X time. And your job is to get the bus, get off, get back on. That might work for those who don't have access to a car and still give them an opportunity to go. So I would ask you to look into that just to see if it's possible, because I think if I were a senior, I'd rather do that than not do anything else. And for anybody that's going to college in a big city, that is something you have to get used to, hopping on and off a city bus and getting back on at a certain time. So it's just a thought.
Those are great thoughts. Meredith and I were just like, what about the van?
So,
Yes,
yeah, just in the essence of time, just for the kids, and
They want to go to bed?
they have to study. Okay, so just in the essence of time, I just want to, I think it's important for them to just have some clarity around this, as well as myself too. And I think some of the questions that you're asking are definitely valid. I just don't know that we will be able to answer them until we launch it, to be honest with you. I think, and as someone who's lived through JOSM 2.0, JOSM 3.0, and the many iterations of it, what I can tell you as someone who was part of the three people who wrote the original plan for JOSM, there were a lot of worries. And I can tell you this, that all the worries and all the what ifs that we had sleepless nights over never came to fruition. And I hope that I can say the same thing about this, but our tweaks to JOSM happened after we lived it, right? And it's so some of your asks might be really difficult for us to solve, and my worry is that we're going to go back and we're going to send you another proposal, but we're still not going to have an answer for the equity question until we even understand how many kids are interested. We don't even have an answer for that. So I think some clarity around, may we start it, come back and give you some data after a couple of weeks? Do we have to go back, answer all of your questions, particularly about what I kind of feel are sort of like in-house management issues, like how many tardies, when we're going to revoke it, what type of discipline means that we're going to revoke it? Does all that have to be spelled out in what the students are asking of the school committee? That's where I think it's a little bit unclear to me and unclear to them. Go ahead.
Ms. Henderson.
Well, I just wonder if, I mean, like you said, it's a 7-day cycle, so like for the month of January, what are we talking about, 3?
Maybe, okay, so we have.
Maybe 3 days?
Today, day 5 was today, so, let's assume we're not ready to start on the next day one, because we would have to meet with the senior class. We would have to go over expectations. We would have to get permission slips out. And I think we do need to make a copy of students' licenses if their parents have given the school permission for their child to participate in. I do want to see if a child is on a JOL. That is important to me. And we are small, and I know all of our seniors, and that's one of the beauties of a class size of 120 students. These are things that we at Monomoy Regional High School can oversee, and that's the beauty of the district that we have. So I think that there are a lot of logistical things that we have to do in order to even get this launched. I think realistically, we're looking at after vacation to even start. So possibly the end of January, we could give you maybe 2 cycles of data, because realistically, it's once every 7 days. That's twice, maybe three times in a month if we're lucky.
Go ahead.
Well, I'm just thinking, and I know it's not on the agenda, but like, I just wonder how we can allow them to pilot and try it out so that we can get the data. I know as a parent that has a student that takes advantage of the internship program, I mean, she is driving off this campus, she does it multiple times, and she drives back on the campus when she's supposed to, and that particular child doesn't have tardy issues.
And she signs in and out.
And she signs in and out, and it was a policy or a procedure that was put in place, and things were signed, and she takes advantage of it, and it's a very positive experience. So I look at these kids who only have a few more months left of their senior year that want to take advantage of this. So I wonder how we can allow that
I think that you bring up the point that I'm making is I worry that in reality, our seniors are done at the end of May. And if we keep coming back, many iterations, I worry that this year is going to be behind us quickly. But I also don't want to make an emotional decision either. And I completely understand your stance as a school committee, and I support that, obviously. Sorry.
Go for it, Meredith.
So approximately, I know you don't have, you might have the hard data. Approximately how many students are taking advantage of the internships at this time?
Currently, we have, I think it's 55 seniors are driving, and then we will be adding 75 second semester, bringing it to
goal, right? That's the goal. Mm-hmm. But the goal for a district is to have something that is safe and backed up and vetted and piloted. So the whole goal isn't that you guys get to benefit from what your work is. Your goal is that you'll have a senior class next year that gets to benefit from the work from you guys. That's the way I look at it. But I would love it if you guys could also. So I think a goal for this year to have it roll out in 2023 is completely doable. I think that and I know, Jen, you weren't here at the last meeting, but from where their presentation was for the first time we'd ever heard it last time to this time is leaps. You guys did diligent work. You came back, you answered a lot of our questions, a lot of our concerns. And I think I speak for the board that we all completely understand the need, and there's lots of value to an open campus arrangement. Most of us, or half of us, have been through the Jocelyn process, as you have. We've been through it, and that was an arduous, very long process. But it also had to do with 800 plus students. We're talking about a much smaller group here. So what I'm proposing is that you guys have come so far from the last document, you didn't even have a document, to this. With the information that we provided tonight, I think you could tweak that document. Okay. I think you could maybe answer the van question, present it at our next meeting. It could have a vote at the next meeting if we even put it on there for a vote, because we could say this is like the second presentation, so that we're following our protocols correctly. Come with the document, even if we have to tweak it a little bit, we could still vote on it, and you could pilot it. I mean, that's my vision, and I am happy to hear from the board, but my vision is if you want to push it through, all I'm asking is, could you tweak the document one more time? Less is more. Think about the things we talked about tonight. Take some away, leave some in. You've got the procedures already. You know you do. You do. So I don't see a problem with the pilot. I just would like to see the document just tightened up with the things we talked about tonight, and to speak about the equity piece. Is the van even a possibility? You're going to come back and go, it's not on here because it's not a possibility, we couldn't do it. And we're going to understand that because you're going to say there were X, Y, and Z restrictions. Or it is a possibility, but not for the pilot because we need to do this, this, and this, but we still want to pilot it. I think that would be completely reasonable. And at that point, I would say that's what my expectations would be as the chair. And if anyone else has anything to add.
I will add something. Thank you.
I knew you would.
Well,
Mr. Russell.
I won't sleep tonight. I wouldn't want to toss and turn over. I see this distinctly different, and if it's the other school you were working in, Jen, that's good news because the other two samples were off Cape that we had to digest. I'm interested in how many dozens and dozens of schools that have not had the initiative to try this. I can't reconcile in my mind that using the out-of-campus internship as an example of good faith kids coming and going, trust. I see the end result of someone arriving at a dental office and working with the front nurse, or whatever it might be. I totally applaud that. I am not able in my own mind, and it probably never will happen with 17 parents calling up. So if someone asks Terry, what is the prime reason the youngsters would want for 48 minutes where they come to school with a Chromebook to do their work and they're all doing pretty good, where do they go that's going to make them a better student? In my mind, I do not have the best answer that I would feel good myself with it, because it's different than saying, oh, they go to a nursing home for 50 minutes. No problem whatsoever. I'm having a difficult time justifying that driving down to Ruggies, I wouldn't want to say it, I wish we didn't, or driving to the beach for 40 minutes, or to home, I thought some parents would be worried, frankly, myself, that's me, that no one else is at home other than my son and a buddy of his to make a ham sandwich. I know I'm being slightly sarcastic, but I wish I had a little bit more confidence in the real reason why we're opening up the responsibility for the kids to have this experience, because I think it is different than driving off to an internship. So my last comment.
Sorry. Yeah, I think maybe I hear Terry's concern, and I think it can be addressed in this wonderful world that we use, a wonderful word of purpose. And maybe that would be important to include in this document. Like, the purpose of Open Campus is a senior privilege to ba-da-da-da-da. Whatever it is that you want to articulate the purpose of this privilege is, I think would be very helpful. And to your point, I think part of that is it's not our job to know why a student needs to do what they need to do. Part of how I see this privilege is we're saying we trust students to make a really good decision for whatever they need for this time during the school day, and that's for them to decide, and we're just giving them the opportunity to exercise some decision-making about what they need for themselves. So I don't think we need to have that answer, but I think we need to have clarity on the purpose of the program.
And Ms. Gates.
So I understand the reservations. I think, I'm just going to be really honest, I lean the other way. I feel like anytime students come to us with an idea, I think we have to listen. And I'm open to listening. So I want to see this work. And so to answer Jackie's question, yeah, we have a meeting coming up on the 21st or January 5th. Decide, we could do it before the holidays, after the holidays, but I do believe we owe it to them to put it on the agenda on one of those two dates, and then let's just move it forward. But and I would ask you to look into that van idea, because I think that might bring some relief to some folks here.
I think the van idea is very easy. I think it's just a matter of finding a staff person.
Yeah,
that's
okay.
Scott
Carpenter. Scott. He can drive the van.
And then when I was thinking, I was hoping we had one more meeting before break, so you could roll it out in 23. So, and what I'm saying is I'm not going to put it on as like a first reading or whatever. It's going to be, this is it, and we would vote at that meeting, and then you guys would be good to go after 2023 if it was voted in to pilot starting sometime after the new year.
Yep.
So if I know it's a lot to do, and I know you guys have tests and exams and stuff, but sometimes our best work is under pressure, and that's another big kid thing you have to learn how to do. So taking what we've given you, your homework, tighten up those documents, get those permission slips, your nice little packet, this is how we're proposing it, with your, this is our concept, and bringing that back, so we have the document, and all we have to do is dot our i's and cross our t's, and then we will have to take a vote as a committee, because that's what we do. And as you can hear, there are different opinions, but that's the beauty of life.
And I think in just closing, we will send that survey out again, just to see if we can get some more takers.
Thank you.
Yep. That sounds great.
So they're coming back the 22nd?
Yep. No, the 21st.
21st?
Yeah, 21st, right?
Wednesday?
Yeah, I think.
22nd.
Oh, did I give the wrong date? I apologize for the public.
Sorry.
Is it December 22nd?
That's Thursday.
Okay, I gave the wrong date. My apologies.
December 22nd, right before the holiday.
So, December 22nd.
The other option, and Miss Police can communicate, or
We'll
you
let you
guys
know.
can.
Yep.
Yeah, if we need to push it out to the first one after the new year, that's fine too, because we're voting and you're gonna fly. So, or you're not gonna fly, one or the other, I'm not presuming. But whatever you think is feasible and, I want you
Fair
to
enough.
study before working on this stuff too.
Very good.
So.
Thank you, folks.
Everybody
Thank
good?
you.
Yep, all right, great.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for your comments and feedback. Next item on the agenda is subcommittee assignments. This is something I've been kind of wanting to talk about for a little while because at one of our meetings, it came to my attention that one of our members was on like 6 subcommittee representative liaison spots. And as we were having a difficult time as a committee getting together and we were kind of like, well, I have this and I have that, it makes you realize that the main goal is that we are here on every other Thursday and we're here for our school committee meeting. Besides that, we have our subcommittees. Over the years, I've seen this document grow because now we have a strategic plan steering committee subcommittee, or we've got our regional agreement working group, and we kind of have added things. Now, there are subcommittees on here that sometimes aren't active for a year or very little, like negotiations. We're not in a negotiation year necessarily right now. So even though you're assigned to that, it doesn't necessarily mean you're obligated and going to meetings every other week for that. So what I'd like to do is take a look at the document. Right now, I have Jess is assigned to 6 spots. I'm assigned to 6 spots. Tina is assigned to 6 spots. Danielle to 5. Meredith to 4. Terry and Sharon each have 3, and then Betty will be assigned to many. So what I would like to do is I want to go through the document, and I can tell you, evaluation, superintendent, that doesn't go anywhere. Finance doesn't go anywhere. Negotiations doesn't go anywhere. Policy subcommittee and warrant payroll. So those are our core. Those are our main ones. And then when you look at representatives, we have Westgate Foundation, and Tina, I know that you just attended the Westgate Foundation. Can you tell me how often they meet?
Yeah, 4 times a year. And
4 times a year.
Do you mind if I speak to that at this time?
Yes.
Okay. So the Westgate Foundation reached out to me probably a month ago to ask me to join because, and it wasn't really in the role of school committee, it was to be a Harwich member because they're comprised, I guess, mostly of Chatham people, and there were 2 Harwich, Mr. Houston being on there as well, Richard Houston. So I was asked to think about it, and I thought, oh, can I do that? So I've looked into ethics and conflict of interest. It's okay. And then I just wanted to propose to you, Jessica, because you're the person there, that they, and no fault of yours, but they shared with me, so I went to their meeting today just to kind of see what it was about. And they had said they hadn't heard from anybody at Monomoy in several years. So we technically have a representative. And it may just be because, so I don't know whose job it was to reach out to whom, but it doesn't matter. I'm asking today if it's okay with you, if you want to come off of that and let me take it over.
Yeah.
Okay. Would that be okay?
Consensus, everybody good with that? Okay,
Okay.
so Tina's gonna go on to Westgate, they meet 4 times a year, and Jess, we're gonna pull you off that one. The next one, sick bank, and that is few and far between, and I'm assigned to that, so it's fine. Cape Cod Collaborative, Jess, I know that, you've attended 1 or 2 of those?
No, it's
Or-
once a month.
So it's once a month, okay. And is that something, you do have 6, I know, so is that one of the ones you would like to stay on, or you would like to see if someone is willing to?
If somebody else is interested, that's
Okay.
fine. I was on it last year as well, so if somebody else wants a turn, but then I would be happy to stay on it as well, so.
Okay, so that one is 1 time a month. So we're gonna keep going, but Cape Cod Collaborative is something we're looking for maybe someone to join and do, and that's 1 time a month, and where is it?
Right now, it's hybrid, so it's in Osterville, so if they go back in person, you would have to go to the Osterville campus, but for right now, it's virtual.
Okay, great. The District Wellness Committee, Danielle, you're on that one. How often do you guys meet, or you haven't, or?
Is it 4 times a year?
4 times a year? Okay. And as I'm going through, if there's one that you're like, yeah, that's one I just haven't been able to make yet, and it's, like, let's talk about it, and.
I would say for me, the Wellness Committee has been problematic for me to participate in actively.
Okay.
And really engage in, yeah.
Okay. Housing Advisory Committee, Jess, you're on that, and Tina?
Honestly, and Jessica, you can speak to this as well, it's really an ad hoc committee, and Jessica and I just touch base and keep each other informed. I don't find it to be too much work.
It's all things that I'm doing anyway.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
it's
So do
fine.
we think we can cross that off and actually get rid of the Housing Advisory Committee? And actually, if something's brought to someone's attention, you give it to us and we put it on the agenda?
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with that.
I
We
mean,
can just be the point people, basically. and keep-
Well, because
yeah.
you're kind of liaisons already in your natural world.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
I mean, if I know I've got some stuff coming up that I'm gonna be wanting to put on the agenda regarding housing, so we'll just kind of, why it originally, we had it on there was because we were talking about working with NOSIT.
Yes.
And kind of collaborating with what they were doing, and I'm not sure where that stands. And I know Chatham has its own working group now, and I'm not sure about Harwich, and that's regarding rentals and things like that, so I'm just not sure it's something that I need to have on here, until we get a little bit more, until there's something else more established to work with. Ms. Dolly?
Yeah, I totally hear that, and I think, just want to air out sort of a question that's forming is, how as a school committee then are we sort of articulating and having accountability around this area of work that we've identified as important to us? And sort of having a placeholder that we know we have some focus toward.
That's a great question, because I know that's where it originated. It originated with the alarming rates of people needing homes and the housing crisis. And I'm wondering if it actually works into a liaison position with the select board for each town.
That's an idea.
We already have
Yeah.
that, so as part of the select board and finance committee liaison, it can kind of be that, part of that, just a thought. It's already there, it's already built, and it's in an active conversation. I know with Chatham, I'm not aware of what Harwich is actively doing for housing conversations, but that is where that information could come from. We could also make it a report on our agendas at once a month with updates, which would, in reality, make me have to reach out to, or our liaison, I would reach out to our liaisons for our selectmen and say, what's the latest update? Or, maybe we talk about an article that was in the Chronicle, or maybe we reach out to the NOSIT schools and talk to them. It's just one more piece. If you're already talking to them, does that make more sense? Does that work, Danielle?
Yeah, I think so. And maybe we wordsmith a little bit the name of that liaison shift to.
Yep. So when we get to liaisons, we'll it's the second one down, and then we'll do that?
Yeah.
Okay. CPAC. You're on that one, Meredith? And how often do they meet?
They're meeting more and more now. And I was more in touch last year, so that's on one of my goals to be back. But I would like to stay there.
How often do they meet, do you know?
No.
Is it monthly?
It just wasn't like a once a month kind of thing. It was, it's more inconsistent, but when they do, I'm going to make it a point to be there.
Okay. But you're going to stay on there, so great.
Yes, please.
So then, we're at the select board and finance committees. So, it's a liaison position, so it could be select board, you could just put select board, you could put select board, finance, housing. Did you have some thoughts,
Well, I
Danielle?
wonder if it's something like, town liaisons. And it's understood that you're the liaison to the select board and the finance committee and housing and human resource, or whatever is important or critical, that's committees and.
Town board liaison?
Yeah.
And then maybe underneath, it could be like select finance, housing, whatever. Like,
If we need to articulate that, I'm not sure.
I don't know.
If we do.
Mr. Russell,
Yes.
I just want your opinion on that one.
Oh,
Or are you looking on the left column?
no, I'm cross-eyed, it looks from your angle, but it's me again.
I always like your opinion.
Well, in the quest of kind of shrinking the sheet down, I would have no problem with the thoughts that Danielle raised. Also, You ever get a point where you think you have an also, but you really don't?
Yeah.
You know, the Select Board and Finance Committee's Chatham Howard. So my thought might be, like Jackie, I think any chair should be part of that. So you're on that, that's good. Whoever becomes the next chair, and then the next chair, should be on that committee, sort of automatic. Now, if that means maybe you're not on another one, but that's one of those committees that I think, unless there's a semi-crisis, I don't see a lot of meetings that, so, off the top of my head.
But you're okay with it kind of moving it from select board finance to kind of more of like a town board liaison?
No problem at all with that.
Ms. Games?
Yeah, I guess town board liaison is fine, but to me, select board, anything that comes underneath the select board agenda, we should cover. I mean, even the disability rights, there
Right.
might be anything going on under that umbrella. I'm fine with keeping it the way it is, because to me, it's just assumed under select board that anything that they take up should be our
Including
concern
finance.
as it relates to school, yeah.
So it actually should just
That would be
be
my
a select board
thought.
liaison.
I think housing is an automatic,
Yep.
in my opinion,
So select board liaison.
yeah.
Okay. Regional agreement working group.
Yeah,
I don't think we're activated right now, but I think that's just fine the way it is right now. I mean, we're always going to have it. I envision. And then legislation liaison. I mean, that's
Yeah.
What is that like for you, Tina? Is it?
I would probably, to make it more clear, would it make sense to have legislation/mask, MASC liaison? Because a lot of that legislation comes through mask. I stay updated on a lot of stuff through just being in that network.
Yep, that's fine. And then, of course, the strategic plan steering subcommittee. Is that still a thing at this point, or we've kind of, because we've morphed now into Portrait of a Graduate, so, but you guys don't meet, just the four of you anymore?
Not currently, but I think that is something we will need to discuss, how we move that forward, because there's understanding that, the Portrait of Graduate is step one, and that moves into strategic planning, and
Right.
I think Portrait of a Graduate will wrap up in February, and then I'm imagining, we haven't even discussed this yet, but thinking out loud, we would probably regroup sometime after that, and then think about our process and plan for moving forward.
For put forth. So, and I'm certainly not saying take it off, because it is what we are, so we need to have that on here. And Jess, did you say that at this point, we probably are fine with just a Chatham rep and a Harwich rep, and you don't need to be on that one anymore?
That's my feeling, if that's, yeah. Great.
Is that good? Okay, all right, great. So that kind of just goes through all of the committees. Now, I want to go through each one, not to make this daunting, but we just haven't done it, and I just need to clean house here a little bit. So superintendent eval is myself, Danielle, Meredith, and Jess. And Jess, you're also on policy subcommittee.
Yes.
And those are the two big ones that you're on.
Yes.
So I feel like we've got you to a good place.
Yes, thank
right?
you.
Okay, great. And at any time, if anybody wants to identify one they just can't be on anymore, just please let me know, and we'll move things around. I guess what I'll do is go to Betty. Betty, the important ones we have right now that we need spots on are where Nancy was. She was on finance sub. She was also select board finance committee liaison, because they kind of go hand in hand. And then on negotiations. If you're interested in something different and that person is interested in switching with you, if you wanted to be on strategic plan, or if you wanted to do regional agreement working group, or you could switch with another Chatham person at this time, but I'm thinking the simplest thing to do is to plug you into finance and negotiations. The only other thing I would suggest is sometimes policy subcommittee is a great committee to start on, and I would ask Danielle if she would be willing, but I know you're the chair of it, to come up to finance and have Betty go to policy sub. But because policy is just kind of, and I know you're coming midterm, and it's a really great committee to start on, because it really kind of.
Can you remind me what the meeting sort of frequency and schedule is for finance?
So we haven't met yet this year. So we will be meeting, we're probably 5 times a year, maybe 4.
Done.
So it's not, and it's done, right, okay.
No more, done.
It's like budget season.
It's in budget season, and it's, you know, sometimes it's once a week for 4 weeks. If it depends, it could be an emergency. That's the thing, is sometimes finance is like, we need to have a finance meeting in 2 days.
Yeah.
And we've got to do, and you have to do it. And because of quorum, now that we're running them like subcommittees, you have to do it.
Right.
So that's the only piece that
Yeah.
you've got to be very flexible for it.
I've had some more sort of
Yep.
things come onto my plate in my personal and family life. I don't know that I could be that agile in scheduling.
Betty, how do you feel about, is that something that's doable for you?
Put me wherever you want.
Okay. Hey, Betty's on finance. Betty's on select board and finance committee liaison with me. And then negotiations, which isn't really doing anything right now. And then, knock on wood, Miss Holly?
I'll jump up to negotiations if Betty would like to go on to policy.
Oh, because we're not doing anything?
Oh. Betty, would you be?
You got it.
Would you be interested in doing that? Going on policy, and then you'll go to negotiations,
Yeah.
Danielle? Okay.
You're coming
So we're
on
gonna
policy?
put
Yeah.
All right, we need
Danielle
a
on
new chair
negotiations,
policy.
and we're gonna put, where am I doing?
So you're coming off policy, Betty's going on.
Betty's going on policy, and you guys are gonna have to reorganize your chair situation for that, Tina.
Can I have a question? So let me make sure I understand this. You're coming on negotiations and you're coming on finance, is that right?
Correct.
I guess the only comment I'll make, I love that Betty's bringing an HR background to the table, and I wonder if that's helpful in negotiations. But anyway, I just put that aside.
Well, next year when we're in negotiations.
Oh, okay,
Be on
well, next year.
negotiations.
Next year, maybe.
We've got time.
Yeah.
I'll keep her seat warm.
Yeah.
Perfect. And then I was just thinking if there is any other one that anyone was looking to, needing to free up, because we have Betty on 2, we have her on 3 now. Anybody else have anything that, Tina?
Do you need a backup on warrant payroll?
No,
Are you
because
good
it's
with that?
all electronic now.
Okay.
It's amazing. Miss Tolly?
The only thing I'll say, that I'm just acknowledging it's been hard, it's been a challenge to participate in the wellness committee, schedule-wise. So if there's anybody who is particularly interested in that one, I would be happy to step aside and.
I know, that one's 4 times a year? And when is it held?
What are they, like Wednesdays at 5:30?
5 to 6:15.
I'm just like, they've just happened to dovetail.
Yep,
And
got it.
it's-
Betty, would you
I'm
be
happy to
interested
stay
in-
on it and continue to try
Is
to
that
make
work
it
within your work day? Like your regular job? Yeah.
Okay, no, I can do
You interested in that? Okay. Danielle, can you just check, just help her set up connect with emails or who she needs to contact when she knows when the meetings are?
It's gonna
Or
be
just
on
with
Melissa. Yeah, it's gonna be
All right,
Melissa.
perfect. So Betty will connect you with Melissa. Okay, great.
Quick question for
Ms. Gaines?
policy. So Betty, since you're coming to policy, first of all, welcome. And I think we already have our meetings for the rest of the year, which I believe, Danielle, help me out here. I think it's always the first Monday of every month, with the exception of January, which is going to be the second Monday at 6:30. And those are virtual meetings. So we made that decision in the very beginning for policy.
Ms. Holly.
I'm just saying, I'd be happy, there's been a lot of structuring already to the policy subcommittee, even with building agendas for months ahead. So I'd be happy to sit down with you and go over that and help you sort of get the lay of the land of how we have organized ourselves, how Melissa keeps us organized, and just sort of help you ease in.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay.
Thank
So
you,
we can
Danielle. That's really kind of you.
exchange Ways to do that.
And we're all available by email or phone or text if you have questions, anything at all about how things function or whatever, or anything at all. We're all here. So I think that pretty much is going to be a fun draft. We're going to type that up. So I'll bring it to our next meeting just for approval for everyone to take a look at it. But going forward between now and the 22nd of December, does everybody know where they're going and what they're doing?
Yes.
No. Betty, I will contact you about finance.
Thank you.
That's all you need to worry about. Miss Melissa is going to contact you about the district wellness committee. And policy subcommittee is going to email you their agenda for their next meeting. And there is nothing as of right this second for select board liaison, so you don't have to worry about that. And I think that is all of them. Does that sound good? Yes, Ms. Gaines?
So you're saying that you're okay with being the one and only select board liaison? Is that what we're agreeing to? That's going to stay yellow?
No, Betty is.
Oh, Betty, you agreed to do that too? I did. Wow.
Because finance and, they're just kind of, like you said, Tina, like, they're kind of the same. Like, if you're working on the budget, you're the best person to really talk to select board or listen to select board and deliver information back. Unless Danielle or Jess are interested in that, and that's certainly open too. It doesn't have to be, because we do, like, we have Terry or we have Sharon and Tina, they're one's on finance and one's on liaison, so it can happen. So if Danielle or Jess, if you're interested as Chatham members to be on as select board liaison, you can. Ms. Gaines, looks like she wants to volunteer
I don't want to throw
someone.
Jessica under the bus, but Jessica's already involved. You're already involved in so many Chatham things already. Would it make sense? I don't want to twist your arm, but anyway, I'll just throw that out there.
Well, the liaison spot, like I said, it's not attending all their
Right,
meetings. It's
exactly.
going to the important ones. So, and it's two of us. It's not just one of us. It's
Yeah, no, that's fine.
And the only reason I'm thinking outside the box, and I think Tina is too, is Betty, just being on finance in the middle of budget season is going to be enough.
Right.
Just a lot. And it's not that it's a lot of work, but it's a lot of thinking, and so I think that would be great if you.
No, I'm on board.
Are we messing up what we've done, Jess? Or are you good?
Let's see. 1,
I took one away.
2,
1, 2, 3. And it's 3. So you've got policy liaison sometimes and superintendent eval.
Okay.
And then Cape Cod Collaborative is the one that we couldn't sell to anybody. But certainly,
No,
if there's a
that's-
meeting that you can't go to, reach out to the rest of us, and it might be something that we can do.
Okay, great.
I think that's fine.
So
Ms. Gaines?
question.
Yes.
So with Jessica coming on as a liaison with the select board and then myself already there, I don't think we need the housing advisory.
No.
Can we just mark that off?
Yeah.
Because
We already
Jessica-
did.
Oh, I thought, okay, I thought we
I
had
crossed that off.
Okay, I thought we had
Because
that
remember,
open
we
still.
talked about how the liaison for
No,
the
we
select
did,
board
but I
is-
thought
yeah.
I understood you, I thought we were going to circle back just to clarify. So I've got it Xed out.
Yeah, we circled back when we got to liaisons that it's all, everything that happens under the select
Yep.
board is going to, because it's such a hot button item right
Yep.
now, it's always going to
Okay,
be
good.
talked about.
Yep, we'll mark it out.
Sure.
Okay. Any other questions or corrections? And I will bring a new draft next time. And everyone knows where they're going and knows who they're emailing. Okay, great. Moving on. Thank you,
Madam
guys. That feels better.
Thank you.
I hope everybody else feels as good as I do.
Can I just say thank you? I
Yeah.
appreciate the truffle shuffle that just happened. a
Yeah,
lot.
no,
Thank
good.
you.
Yes,
I'm
you're welcome.
gonna write that
I've been
down.
wanting to do that shuffle for a while, so we just needed to do it. We needed to pull the reins back in. Okay. Next item, speaking of policy, is the first reading of policy file AC non-discrimination policy. Do we have someone presenting it, or are we just?
Melissa has graciously volunteered to speak to the package of policies before you tonight.
Excellent, thank you. I haven't
We have
seen
been
Melissa
very
in a
busy in the
while.
policy subcommittee.
Good evening. Melissa McGuire, Director of Student Services. Happy to be here. All right, will it be easy? Can we do a couple in block? So for example, the first two, which are non-discrimination policies, they're the same in terms of the changes. So there's new statute that includes a new protected class that is related to hairstyles and hair coverings. And it's actually quite lengthy because they provide enough detail to explain what those hairstyles and hair coverings include. So we've added that to the policy, and we've also added below the legal reference to the to the legislation that just passed this past July. And the only other thing that was changed is we used to have in the non-discrimination clause homelessness, and what we've changed that to, which I think is much better, housing status. So those are very simple changes, and we have since changed all of our footers and language on our website. Anywhere that there was non-discrimination clause, we've already changed that throughout our documents.
Great. Any questions for Melissa on the first two? Okay. Thank you, Melissa. Moving on to student welfare?
Student welfare. So there's quite a bit of new language in the policy, but really what it comes down to is clearer definitions. In the past, for example, DCF did not in fact have definition for neglect or abuse. They now do. So those have been clarified in the definitions. Caregivers have been clarified. And we've also been very cognizant of changing our documents to not just say parent or guardian, but / with a caregiver. And so they've now defined caregivers. It's basically anyone who is working with a child or has responsibility for a child. So that doesn't necessarily just include parents or guardians. So those definitions are clearer. And then we also put a new section in on possession of weapons and the results of that, which also includes the fact that we do have an MOU with our local police departments. So all of those legal ramifications are also included in our MOU, but we've included weapons in this policy because this is welfare. So that's why we included it here. We also included the fact that we have a district crisis team. So that's part of the policy as well. So although it looks like a lot of red, it's a lot of definition. And then just the addition of the weapons.
Any questions from the board? Okay, great. Moving on to library resources.
Yes, thank you, Mark Smith. He did a lot of work with the librarians in the district. The old policy, IJLA, is now going to be terminated, and it will now move over to this new policy of IJLA, which is the library resources. They did a lot of work in looking at this policy, and so thank you, Mark, and the team for that. So that's why it's all red. So we're deleting one and creating a new with more appropriate language.
Okay. Any questions? Okay, great, thank you. Moving on to physical restraint. Prevention of physical restraints and requirements. It's an important word to add there.
This is a big one. We've spent a lot of time on this. I do want to preface that this has already been submitted to the state and approved, meaning that, I mean, you have, as a policy, we need to approve it, but we're in our state audit right now, and it was required to be actually approved by the state in order to even move it forward. So that has been done, thankfully. So just let me give you details on what's changed. We've included more language around the regulation for prevention of physical restraint. We've included additional definitions that were not there before. And then we've provided details with definitions of the use in what is prohibited with restraints. We have a detailed procedure. We also have included the type of supports that are available across the district and for our staff. We've included de-escalation guidelines, also alternatives to restraint. So prior to restraint, which is what we also have to do for our state reporting, we have to put up what are all the things that we did to support the student prior to needing to engage in a physical intervention. We've included timeout procedures and exclusion procedures. We've included what the required training includes. For us, it's 20-hour training that staff receive. We've included safety requirements, what it is we need to do for reporting, and we've also included a piece on resolving concerns with parents, guardians, caregivers, should they be concerned about a restraint that took place. So we've added a significant amount of detail to the policy.
Great. Any questions for Melissa on this policy? Okay. Okay, seeing none. Moving on to sale of surplus equipment.
Oh, you might be able to do that one.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yes. The expert.
Hello.
Hello.
Good evening, school committee. So really the requested change to this policy is just to make the policy a bit more workable in that the way it stands, any equipment no matter, the size or value has to come before school committee before it can be disposed of, and has to be advertised for 2 weeks. So that just creates a lot of work to get rid of, often just, material that, like a broken chair was an example that I have. We've got a couple of broken chairs in the office, and to get rid of them, we have to, document them, get them on an agenda, bring them to school committee, have them voted, advertise them for 2 weeks, and then we can dispose of them. So what I'd like to do is change the policy, so there's only items which have some significant value which we'd have to come to you to get declared surplus. Otherwise, we would still document it, it would come to me, I would evaluate it, and at that point we could dispose of it or seek to sell it if there has some inherent value below what was required to come to school committee.
Oh, I thought that was his hand. Okay. The only question I had on this one, Michael, was there's no mention of the, and there might not have to be, there's no mention of the principal in here. Because remember how the principal had to sign off on the documents before they came, maybe it was to you?
Yep.
Is that still practice?
Yeah, well, so
Before
somebody
it's
has to come and
completed?
submit it to me, and then,
Okay.
we have a process internally, we were trying to like making sure,
Great.
there's no other value to it, that people might want to be able to use it. So if it's not just a broken piece, like, we'll have like broken printers or something like that. I mean, nobody wants a broken printer. But if we have some piece of equipment that some other people might have, we will send it out to appropriate people in the district or to everybody and ask them if they want it. So we do try and, keep stuff moving and get it around.
So this is more about the process of it being under $1,000
Yeah.
versus over?
Yeah.
Okay. In total?
Yes. Per item, yeah.
Per item?
Yeah.
Per item. Any other questions?
I have one, Madam Chair.
Mr. Russell?
It's in general, and I could have asked this years ago, and I've read them twice at home and then here. The red additions that we've just approved, when we hear the policy committee, or in this case, Michael, say, we decided to change this, which is fine. How do we affirm that our legal counsel, and I know, let's say that our legal counsel doesn't review our add-ons, so I'm assuming what comes from the state, they had someone look at their black outline and say, yeah, that's a clean sheet, yeah, that looks fine. When all the separate districts decide to add their insights based on experience, how are we certain that it's legal?
So it does refer to, I think it has at the bottom of that, I'm pretty sure
The
it
legal
has a
references?
reference to the MGL, to the law. And so the law always supersedes the policy. So often the policy is just how we are interpreting and delivering on the law. But we have to follow the law first and foremost.
Yeah.
And so the law is included by reference in the policy.
Okay. Thanks, Michael.
And my only other comment on it is, I'm just making sure, because now he's making me question reading these policies.
Yeah.
Anything in red is added. If it's stricken, it was there and then replaced, correct? Because I don't see a lot that are stricken, so. And I know that being on policy subcommittee in the last 2 years, we've just added a lot to the policies.
Yeah.
So, we are still striking and showing us what's stricken when we're
Yes.
changing verbiage and stuff. Okay, great, thank you.
Yes, just like, hold on, what was that one?
Oh, we've got one coming, the next
Yeah.
one, perfect,
Yes.
yeah. There's one on the docket, okay.
All right, fantastic.
Great, thank you.
Thank you
Next
very
up,
much.
Media Center Materials and Adoption.
That's the one I just did in block with the,
We already talked
with the
about it.
library resources side.
Right.
The one that's.
Yeah, so this whole policy that's,
Oh.
yeah, this one is being, we
It wasn't with
recommend
that one.
to delete it and replace it with what we just did earlier. Yeah.
So
that's an-
IJL, we need to vote on. That's what I'm looking for. Replace file IJLA. Replace with file IJLA.
So which one was it here? So what we're recommending on policy is to delete this whole one, to like get rid of it, that's our recommendation, and replace it with, which one was it here? What order?
IJLA.
This one.
Library
Yeah, this one.
resources.
Which is all red because it's all brand new.
Okay, so can
Yep.
I have a motion?
So moved.
Actually, is this on?
It
I don't
says vote
think-
required.
Is it on? Hold on.
It is,
Yeah.
Yep.
to discontinue.
Oh, that one, yes, okay,
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Do I
Okay.
need to say something more? I move to discontinue the use of policy IJL and replace it with file IJLA.
And a second?
Second.
Questions?
Well, I think we're just voting to discontinue, not replace, right? Because don't we have to?
Correct?
Yes, we have to discontinue.
Would you like to amend your
replace.
motion?
Yes, I
Rescind your
amend my
second, please?
motion.
Whoever second?
I rescind.
Okay, thank you. Amend?
amendment is I move to discontinue the use of policy file IJL.
Great, thank you.
Second.
Second, okay, any questions or discussion? All right, roll call, Ms. Stout?
Aye.
Ms. Tully?
Aye.
Ms. Gaines?
Aye.
Ms. Gray?
Aye.
Ms. Rogers?
Aye.
Mr. Russell?
Aye.
Ms. Henderson?
Aye.
And the chair is an aye. Okay, next item on the agenda is the finance report.
All right. I'm just going to get the slides up. All right.
Sorry, I have a question.
Yes, Ms. Tully?
So this paper that we have in front of us in our packet, there's a motion on it. Is this part of the agenda item of our quarter one finance report, or is
Yeah.
is this something separate?
Yeah, it does say
I was
vote required next to it, and that's the vote.
I was wondering.
So this is a summary of this
Of what?
Well-
It's out of order.
ish. It's a follow-up. Follow-up.
Okay.
Got it.
Okay.
Make more sense?
Yep.
Right, fine, that's what we're on right now.
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
Michael McMillan, business manager.
school committee. So, so that memo is requesting transfers that kind of come out of this quarterly finance report. So, I had extra time to work on this quarterly report, and
You're welcome.
so this is you've only yourself to blame for the,
All the
So I
colors,
spent-
pictures.
I used that time. I can hopefully show you.
Hoping for active graphics.
Yeah. Well, there we go. So I did a kind of new report, new format for the report. So I wanted to really, so it used to just be a lot of dense text, and I wanted to make it something that was a little more readable and kind of answered sort of three main questions. One is, overall, do we have enough funds to get through the year? This is me kind of projecting what I think, or guessing what I think you want to know. So you don't want to know a ton, but you'd like to know that A, we got enough money to get through the year. You want to know that we're spending our money as we said we would, and to know if there's any areas of concern or anything you should be aware of related to expenditure or revenue. And so that's what I've tried to do in sort of the 3 or 4 pages in like different boxes and colors, and just make it a bit more readable. So if you think that I'm not doing that, or if you think that there's other things you would like me to see me address in that paper, please let me know, either in meeting or by email or any way you like. And then I also did include this, one of the things when I've had questions on various topics, one of my answers has often been, oh, why don't I start including that in the quarterly report? So we have a couple of other areas of importance, like student activities, and I've also included an update on ESSER this time. Okay, so in this quarter one quarterly report, I've just highlighted some graphs that are in that document, which you've already received in your papers. So this first chart shows where we are in terms of our expenditure and encumbrances to this point in the year compared to previous years. So the dark blue in this chart, and it's also in your handouts, is all the expenditure and encumbrances. And encumbrances essentially are just where we've made a commitment to spend money. So like if we've issued a purchase order to a vendor, that's an encumbrance that we then release when we pay the invoice. We also, in Monomoy, encumber all salaries. So to be honest, at the start of the year, we encumber like 80% of our budget because all our salaries and all our big contracts go straight into the purchase orders and payroll, and so that encumbers a lot of our budget. So you can see, compared to last year when we were still kind of coming out of COVID, and we were still kind of catching up with some expenditure and activities were slowly ramping up, we're actually way behind last year. This year, we're kind of much closer to where we've been to in previous years. We have 8% of our budget unencumbered or spent at this point of the year. I'm totally comfortable with that. It's a little less than it's been, but it's still plenty of money to ensure that we're going to finish the year with enough funds. And then this is like an awesome chart, right? So this is So what I've done is I've gone back over the last 5 years and looked at our pattern of expenditure. Because one of the things that keeps me up at night is like, okay, I think we've got plenty of money left, but am I forgetting that we have some huge expenditure that comes in December? Because our money, we don't spend money, like it doesn't actually go super consistently through the year. We have a big expenditure at the end of the year. So I could be sitting happily thinking, I've got plenty of money, and then hit some big expenditure in June that just blows it out of the water. So what this does is this does a trend line based on the last 5 years of expenditure, just using really, great formulas in Excel, and it just plots based on that 5-year expenditure where expenditure will go this year. So it's just kind of a prediction based on our previous expenditure. That's the orange lines, and there's an upper and a lower limit. And then the blue line is where we are this year. So I can see, if we continue to spend money as we have in the last 5 years, then this is kind of where we're going to end up at the end of the year. It's not a guarantee, stuff could come along and, make life more difficult or easier, but it just gives me a sense of, are we going in the right direction? Are things consistent with where they have been in the past? So this is a nice example, and you can see, I don't know if I'll be able to, so you can see like, we actually start a little low, and I think that's just, I don't know exactly why we started low in June, but it's kind of right there at the bottom. And then up here, it's really consistent. But see right here in August, the blue line, that's this year, is a bit higher than it's been in previous years based on or where it would be based on the previous year's expenditure. And that's because we made a payment on the debt for the high school in August rather than September. So then you can see September, it jumps up and it gets right back on track in September. So this is sort of thing that's really helpful for me, and it just gives you some reassurance that, yep, we're spending in line with where we should be. So if I ever come and present this and the blue line is varying wildly from the orange line, then that's something I'll need to be able to explain to you guys and to myself to help me sleep at night. All right. So this is a little more detail basically than what I've just presented. And again, I know it gets a little small here, but it is also in your packs. So what this does is, you remember that earlier a graph that had the dark blue line on the light blue? It's the same thing, but it's broken down by major account. So the light blue line is the budget, the dark blue line is where all the funds we've encumbered or spent to date. And it's broken down by major account. So these are categories of expenditure that the state that gives us. So when we collate all our expenditure, they use these categories. So like we've got, so the very first one you can see on guidance and counselling, we've encumbered or spent right up to where we are our budget on guidance and counselling, and that's one of those transfers I'm going to ask you for. And then again, to see, because in context, it's hard, when you just see those numbers, it's always a little hard to distinguish, well, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Like, I don't know, is that much light blue a problem? Well, so what I've done is, you can just about see there's like a red box. Now that's where our expenditure would be if we were spending at the same rate as we did last year, right? Because our budgets have gone up, so we should be spending a little more money, but we should also be spending about the same sort of percentage as we were last year. So you can see we are actually ahead of where we would be if we were spending the same rate last year in a number of areas. And that's why when you look back at that first line, last year it was kind of the dark blue line was lower. If I go back, see how the dark blue line last year, it's like you've got all this big space in budget here, whereas it's a little smaller here. Well, that's explained because it's broken down here. All these areas so see, for example, in benefits and fixed charges, the red line's a good bit below the blue line. So that's because, for example, for benefits, we had a payment holiday last year, a premium holiday for our health insurance. So we were spending less money on health insurance last year because we had that one less payment to make. And that was something that a Cape Cod Municipal Health Group did because they had a lot of money in their reserve account. So that's why, that's why you see that that's extra there. Also guidance counselling, so I'm going to talk about that. So the middle school added a guidance counsellor this year that had not been budgeted, and that's going to be one of the requests we have for a budget transfer because they didn't fill another teaching position, a reading specialist position. Instead, they hired a guidance counsellor. And so we're going to be asking you to transfer the funds. So that's why we're a bit behind the budget or a bit ahead of budget on guidance, because we've been paying that position. Operations and maintenance is another area where we're spending ahead of trend. And again, we're seeing a lot of expenditure related to our HVAC and just building maintenance. So we have a new contract. You may remember we have a new vendor who's doing all our HVAC maintenance. And it's a bit like, when you have someone new come in, they look at everything, they're like, oh, you should probably fix that, and you should probably fix that. So we're repairing a lot of stuff that might have that we kind of just got, where we're just living without. And so, it's an investment in our materials and our mechanics, and so it's good to get it done, but it is putting us a little behind budget, and we're a little ahead of budget. And so I'm working with the facilities director to make sure we're doing just what we need to do, going forward, so we get through to the end of the year. Those are some of the highlights, and I've highlighted another few areas. And I've also put in, sorry, do you have a question?
I have a question, but I think Terry does too, so go ahead.
A quick one, Michael, and I think I know the answer, but maybe for all of us of the public. Middle of your second page, you talk about guidance, counseling, and testing, similar to years ago, Title I's. Now, the ESSA money,
yes.
You said here the last sentence, this is in addition to 3 SEL and mental health positions funded through ESSA. And we must have discussed them and thought that was a real need, and we can recall those conversations. Yeah. How does one in your position project out 3 years when ESSA says, thank you, we're going somewhere else now? And we're going to pick up that, assume we want to pick up that because things aren't getting any better, let's say.
Yeah.
So you're going to make certain that there's $76,000 per position to somehow plan around that. Now, either that's one good way to do it, to see, and then we as a committee say, yes, we approve the transfer of that for the next year.
So that's going to be a theme of our conversations for the next few months. So we're going to keep coming back to this question because, we have I think we have 7 positions being funded through ESSA right now. So, and that's a slide in the budget presentation, because I want to just keep reminding everybody, it's awesome we have these services right now, but in the long term, come the end of next year, so in the end of 24, we will have to either find different funding for those positions or cut them. Those are the only 2 options. So, but there are different ways we can find the funds, and I think that is something we're going to talk about in the budget when we talk about, the different positions within the district that we currently have, where we have vacancies and positions we might not want to fill. Would we replace them with existing positions in ESSA? So I think, we haven't made any decision. It's going to be a mix, right? It's probably going to be some positions we won't need any longer. Some positions we'll try and find other grant funding position maybe, and some we'll try and move into the general fund. And the way we can do that, there's different ways that we can do that. So I'd love to give you an easy answer, but it's a tough question. But in theory, I don't want to preempt the conversation we're going to have, but this idea that ESSER funding came out and it's like, hey, you're going to have to make up a couple of years of education and social and emotional issues. Here's some money to do that. But the reality is these aren't 2 years of issues. These are 10 years of issues. And so, when we talk about this, special education needs that we're seeing as a result of COVID and so on, these needs are going to go on far longer than ESSER funding is going to be around. So as a district, how do we meet that challenge?
Thanks, Mike.
I have a question about the category of professional development. Something that was brought to my attention today, and I just wanted to ask and get some clarification. So if a teacher or, staff member, admin, if they go to a conference or something that involves travel, to get on an airplane, are they getting reimbursed for that travel, or is that an out-of-pocket expense?
They get reimbursed for professional development costs.
That's interesting. Okay.
It depends. Yeah, I can't think why we wouldn't, right? We don't know. So there are, so anything that we are choosing to send somebody to, we're definitely paying their, so if somebody's choosing to do a course on their own, we're not paying their travel to that course. But if we are sending somebody on PD, as a district run thing, for a grant, we're definitely paying for their transport.
Yeah, so there's 2 different categories. Mm-hmm. So there's educators and anybody who has a license, who needs to carry a license to do their job, has to maintain their license and needs to get a certain number of professional development points in order to maintain their license. And that's essentially a contract between them and the state. And the district has to offer free professional development opportunities for people, but people also pursue other things in order to get those professional development points. And so if somebody signs up for something in order to maintain their license, we may not pay for that. Oftentimes we don't. And then we wouldn't be paying for the travel associated with that. But to Michael's point, if we're sending somebody to a particular conference because it's supporting a particular district initiative, then yeah, we do cover travel for that person back and forth. Now, we're also very judicious with an understanding we're spending taxpayer dollars, so we don't fly people anywhere. We're sending conferences locally, so it's people's driving back and forth. It's mileage is the most often way that we're reimbursing.
Okay,
people.
so
The cost to drive back and
that
forth.
helps me understand then. So what, it sounds like you're trying to keep it to the northeast, so they're in their car driving rather than say go to Alaska for this amazing conference to teach STEM. So I just wanted to get clarity on that.
That's what the Westgate Foundation.
Yeah, on a few.
Yes.
We've had a few opportunities where people have traveled to, and like I can think of a couple like where the Westgates. I can think of a couple years ago, people through the Westgate Foundation have gone to. We had a couple teachers go to, I think it was to Toronto, but that was funded through the Westgate Foundation. So those are unique opportunities that were funded through other mechanisms.
Okay, that's helpful. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, any other questions?
Any other questions for Michael?
So I did include in my items to watch section, so things to just keep an eye on was utilities. So, as we're being blessed with a relatively mild sort of early fall that's helped to keep our costs down, we do have electricity and gas supply accounts locked in. So we have contracts with vendors locked in. So that's great. We got a great rate for our gas and a good rate for electricity as well. And they are both out into 2024. But our delivery, which is the utility company, so that's Eversource and National Grid, the people actually deliver it, their rates do change depending on usage and their costs. So that's always an area where we can see increases.
Can you just repeat, I didn't catch the last part. Did you say they end in 2024 or they're through 2024? The contracts,
the end.
rates.
So the end towards the end of FY24. Okay. So that's like 25 for some of them. And 2024. Yes, just prior to we going into 25.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. And a couple. Just let me. Oh, I was jump to the next slide. All right. So then a couple of highlights from revenue. So revenue doesn't fluctuate as much as expenditure the biggest chunk of our revenue is the town assessments. They're set up at the start, they're set up in the spring. They don't vary from what we're expecting. But there are some areas where we do see some changes. So areas that we're seeing where we're getting more money than in the past one is in food service. So the Massachusetts state government agreed to provide lunches for free for students this year, essentially making up the difference between the federal reimbursement, which we always get, to the actual cost. The state's paying that, so we get all lunches free, and so lunches are being provided free. Lunch and breakfast are being provided free to students, and we've seen a big increase in the number of students taken, even since last year when they were also free. This year we really seem to be getting the swing of things. And so we've seen more money coming into that account. In fact, you're only allowed to carry a certain amount of money in your reserve account. So we're actually looking for projects where we can use some of these funds to upgrade some of the equipment. Particularly, we're looking at the middle school right now where we can use those extra funds we have to upgrade the kitchen equipment, which has been there since I think when the building was built. So that would be great. And then we're also obviously seeing that increase in federal funds due to the ESSER grants.
Ms. Tolley, sorry.
So the Massachusetts funding for free school meals, is that something that's approved in the state's annual budget process, or what's the sort of thinking on what's the anticipation of that funding stream?
Yeah, so I believe it was an act The state legislative passed an act to fund school lunches for a year. Whether they
Just
do
for
that
the year?
again, yep, just for the year. So whether they continue to do that is kind of in the laps of the legislators. It's up to them whether they continue to do that.
And do we know
And
where
it's-
that, what that?
There is some
where they are in
discussion
that
about trying
process?
to, yeah, well, I mean, I think some people would like to see it permanent. But obviously that's going to be a hit on the state's budget. So I've not heard any conversation. I think a lot of stuff's up in the air right now because we're about to see a change in governor as well. So I think that leads to some uncertainty, and I think we won't get much more clarity on that until like March or April probably.
So I'm curious how that will dovetail with our budget process then.
Also, in terms of food service,
Yeah.
it's so our food service account. So food service is in theory just a revolving account, right? So we sell it, we pay for lunch, the kid pays for it, or we get state reimbursement. So in theory, there's no. We should be always covering our costs. So what's really giving us more money is we're doing a ton more lunches. So we're not including, so you have some set costs, but we're just doing more lunches, so we're getting more money for the same number of staff, the same, kitchen equipment and all that stuff. So that's why we're seeing more money in our accounts. So if we have, if the state stops reimbursing it, the numbers go down, we'll see our, our reserve will go down because not our reserve won't go down, but our balance won't keep going up because we're not going to be doing the same number of lunches because it won't be free anymore. But basically, when we serve a lunch, either we get paid for it by the student or we get paid for it by the state.
It would also go back, if the state stops, the free reduced lunch piece
Yeah.
would go back into effect. So, so the roughly 40% of the families who have needs would be having that need met and paid
Yeah.
for. It's just at the moment, that's being paid for by the state, plus, plus there's, students who decide that they want the free lunch and are getting that too.
We do have some, and it's probably minimal, but we do have some revenue for food that we do charge for still.
No, oh, sorry, yes, you're right, we do. So second lunches, things like that, snacks that aren't part of your
Drinks,
meal.
things like that.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
charge for those, you're 100% right.
Could you,
Ms. Gibbs?
so second lunches, can you clarify what you mean by that?
So like if you come in and if I give you your burger and then you're like, can I have another burger?
Oh, okay.
You gotta
All
pay
right,
for
just
it.
wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yep.
Is it all grades? I'm sorry, just a quick question. Is it all grades or is it high school not free?
All grades.
All grades, okay, all right, thanks. All right.
And then circuit breaker, so then areas where we're seeing less revenue. So circuit breaker revenue so that's based on prior year's expenses. So last year's expenses and the claim they were able to make based on those expenses was a little lower than the prior year. And so as a result, we expect our, the money that's coming in as a reimbursement of those funds has gone down. So that's not unexpected. School choice, so when you start school choice revenue, the state uses last year's enrollment figures to calculate what school choice money you should be getting this year. That's the money we get for students from other districts who are attending our schools. So the state uses last year's numbers to first start paying us, and they pay us every month. And then when they collect all the numbers, all the actual enrollment data on October 1st, they recalculate a reimbursement to districts. So they say, okay, Monomoy, we've been paying you $100,000 a month because we thought that's how many students you have. Actually, you have fewer students attending Monomoy than you thought, so we're going to adjust it so that over the course of the year you get the right amount of reimbursement for those students. So it's just you're always kind of catch up about, halfway through the year, or maybe a little less, sort of January, February, they'll recalculate and they'll say, okay, you get less than you were receiving in the first few months. We do have slightly fewer students this year than last year. I think it's down by like 20, I think. So, and that's just because we had more students in the upper grades, and as they've graduated, they haven't been replaced in the lower grades. So we're actually still a net benefiter of school choice. So we receive more funds than we pay out in school choice. So while the money we're getting has gone down, the money we're paying out has gone down even more. So it's all good. And Other revenue, so the other revenue you'll see has gone down from last year, and that's largely due to our OPEB fund. So that's the money we put aside every year for post-employment benefits, and that goes into like an investment fund. And the investment fund has not performed great in the last few months because of what you've seen in the stock market and all the reductions there. And so we made a loss there, but we hope to gain that back over the coming months. All right. And then last thing I just wanted to touch on was ESSER. So we have been spending that, as you know, we presented this like a year or so ago now, our plans for ESSER. And we presented it in these 4 buckets. And, you know, in the coming months, I can give more detailed information. But right now, this is what we're seeing, that we're spending less on instruction than we thought we would, largely because after-school programs have been a little less than planned, partly because we just can't get transportation. So we're relying on people getting themselves there, getting themselves back home themselves. We did add, and this kind of comes back to your point, Mr. Russell, we did add a mental health coordinator for the district, which is coordinating mental health services for students and supporting teachers across the district. And we're still, as we plan, to buy an activity bus for the middle school. So those costs have gone up, you know, a lot in the last, you know, sort of year since we put this proposal together. So we'll be looking to increase that. And then the last thing to just mention was that we have received, and we will hopefully soon be receiving some more FEMA reimbursement for the emergencies related to COVID. And one of those areas that they may reimburse is for nursing costs. So we had an extra nurse for COVID, so they may reimburse that. If they do that, that will free up some more money in ESSER for other purposes.
Great.
Question,
Ms. Tully?
What is the FEMA funding?
Yeah.
Is that something that is going to be anticipated annually? Or
No, so basically, the federal government.
Wait, sorry. Ignore that question. I got it.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
All right, excellent.
Not great about ignoring the question, but I think she answered her own question, so she's
Yes.
good.
I read.
Okay.
All right, yeah.
It's amazing.
There
All right.
it is.
Okay.
So that brings me on, I was just going to try and pull them up here, but if you have them in front of you, I have requested, so the budget policy which we amended says that if there's any changes between major accounts, we come to you for approval. So there's 2 budget transfer requests in that memo. One is moving those salary budgets from teachers in the classrooms, I mean it's called teachers, but it's from teachers to guidance, to pay for that additional guidance teacher at the middle school, which is paid from the reading specialist position that we did not fill. And then the other one is so actually this came up last year, but we weren't able to get it fixed because of delays in parts, but we had to replace the projector in the high school auditorium. And so we're transferring funds from pupil services where we had surplus and transportation, so transferring that to, I think it's instructional leadership, which is the account you use for paying for that kind of technology. That's it.
Michael, I just have a question on the motion. I know it says that it's in bold at the top, but I'm wondering if we actually need to list the transfers to fund additional middle school guidance and fund replacement of high school auditorium projector and I said a brain grant.
Major accounts.
Yeah, do you want the account numbers?
No, no, you don't need the account numbers, but the major accounts would be great.
The major accounts, so
Yeah,
you want
so
the
see them-
1,000s or the last
Just that
fours?
Just these from.
Oh, just these.
Yeah.
So in the motion, we want to move to approve the transfer for this, and then the major, okay.
that'd be
All right, great, thank you. And do I have a motion? Ms. Henderson?
I move to approve the fiscal year 23 quarter 1 budget transfers as listed in the memorandum provided to the school committee, including $76,023 transferring from the teachers line item to
Major account.
teacher's major account to the guidance, counseling, and testing major account, and $25,000 transferring from pupil services to instructional leadership.
A second? Second. And a roll call. Ms. Stout?
Aye.
Ms. Tully?
Aye.
Ms. Games?
Aye.
Ms. Gray?
Aye.
Ms. Rogers?
Aye.
Mr. Russell?
Aye.
Ms. Henderson?
Aye.
And the chair is an aye. Great.
All right, fantastic, thank you very much. So that is by far the most conversation we've had about quarterly report. So I think that is a good indicator of the
the
format.
presentation.
So yeah, so I will
Great.
keep doing it like that.
We like graphics. All right, next on the agenda, oh, Michael.
Yeah.
FY '24 draft budget presentation. Hang tight, folks. He's back. He's a moving buffet. No, I always do that wrong.
Movable feast.
Movable feast.
Mobile meal.
Mobile meal. Meals on wheels.
Good.
Mobile feast. Movable feast. Movable feast.
All right, I'm just going to share this.
Losing hungry. Tired. I'm trying.
Okay.
Michael would talk faster.
So, yeah, so this is early in,
Look, December
early
6th.
in the process, but this is the FY '24 budget preparations, kind of where we've got to on the budget. So really, I wanted to give you an idea of kind of the big ticket items, where it looks like we're coming in, but just remember that a lot will change over the next few months, not least our health insurance numbers. So at the moment we're carrying, I'll talk about this, but we're carrying 8%, and that may change, and we'll find that in January and February. The other thing is the state numbers, so how much money we're getting from the state funding, and as I mentioned earlier, with the change in governor, normally we would know that in January, February, but it might not be till March, April even. So I'm going to be doing more work trying to just estimate what that might be over the coming months. As we get all my excuses in now. All right, so these are our budget development principles. It should be driven by the strategic plan. We're going to keep looking at our class sizes. We want to be data-driven, so it's not just ideas, but it's supported by evidence. Also want to be transparent, so we'll keep bringing this information to you. We want it to be collaborative, so with staff, families, and the community. So, that's on us. It's not all, we don't get a lot of people to the public hearings, so we'll be looking at different ways that we can share this information. Joy helps me send emails out and give information to people, but it's not easy getting people to be interested in this stuff. And then also just being, obviously talking to the towns, being cognizant of their financial environment. And I'm really hoping this year to really build a more forward-looking budget, so not just looking at this year, but over the next 5 years. And I hope to come back to you in the next meeting or two with those 5-year projections, just to give you a sense of the context of this year's decision. So it's not a guarantee of where we'll be in 2, 3, 4, 5 years. It's like, okay, this is where, if we keep going in this trajectory, where we might be in a few years and any issues that might come along.
Ms. Games?
So with the collaborative with staff, families, and community, our liaison with the Harwich Finance Committee wants to be a part of this process.
Excellent.
So if, and I don't know, it might just be helpful to have a pull-out. If he's ready, ready and...
He already has it. So
Oh, he has it already?
He has it, yes.
Oh, good. I thank you for taking care of that.
Yeah.
Good.
So I sent it to him, so.
Perfect.
And
Thank
he's
you.
got it, so we'll see.
Thank you.
I just get nervous because these numbers aren't set in stone. I don't want to have hairs, I don't want to get people stressed in the communities with numbers that aren't finalized yet. So, but I have sent them to him.
Okay, and we'll just make sure he understands that.
I preface it with all this every time.
Okay, thank you.
So where we are right now, so the current draft of the budget is about 3.7% increase on the FY23 budget. That's just shy of 1.6 million. So right now that is driven by, the key areas are benefit increases, that's health insurance I mentioned earlier, and also some budget priorities that we're looking to fund. Those are two of the big areas. So we have seen some areas where we're saving funds. One is in that reduction of school choice costs. So fewer of our students are leaving Harwich and Chatham to go to other school districts. And as a result, we are paying less in school choice costs. We also saw a lot of turnover in the last year that reduced costs. So we would see somebody leave who was near the top of their teacher scale, and they're being replaced. And although we're not always able to replace the bottom, sometimes we're replacing at step 3 or 4, that's still a significant saving on someone who's on step 16. So We saw a lot of more of those than normal. Just I don't know why. Probably a combination of a whole bunch of things like COVID and so on. But as a result, that saved us some money, and that's helping to offset other increases. We have, there's obviously, as I mentioned, some assumptions in here. I'm not assuming any huge changes in enrollment. We're expecting it to be kind of in line with the last couple of years. Health insurance is 8%, and I am assuming that school choice and charter school student numbers will be consistent with this year and last year.
Go ahead, misunderstood. Go ahead. You're saying you're assuming it's going to increase by 8%?
Health insurance, yes.
So from 8 to 16?
No, the total increased cost in health will be 8%.
Phew.
Sorry, yes,
Okay.
yeah, 8%.
My
Yes.
question was, it was actually about health insurance assumed to increase by 8%. What was the increase last year? Do you remember?
It was.
It always surprises
I want
us.
to say it was low, so it was like 3%.
It was like 3%.
So-
The year before that, it was like 2.
Yeah, so like there's this, we're all like this hangover where for 4 or 5 years they had these huge increases. So we would come in with an assumption of 3%, and then in March we'd be like, oh my God, it's 8%. What are we going to do? And then we'd be trying to find the funds. And at that point, it's much harder to find funds in a budget where we've already kind of settled around a certain number. It's much harder to then, find more money. It's much easier to say, okay, well, assume it's 8%, and we'll hope to come in lower.
So the last few
there's
years,
still-
we've actually
it's-
budgeted higher,
Yeah,
and
and
it's
had
come
to
in
come
lower.
down.
So we're
Exactly.
budgeting
8%.
We're budgeting 8%.
I think
and
last year we
crossing
kind
our
of
fingers.
initially we were kind of like 10% last year.
We did, yeah. That's why I'm
So
like, I
we came
remember
way
we
down.
put a big
So-
number in there.
So, and so I'm on the board of the Cape Cod Municipal Health Group, and they do still, and so we'll be meeting in January, I think, to set the rates. So we'll have the rates, and they have, so we were so one of the things we started, we thought there was going to be a big increase in costs because of COVID, but COVID worked in kind of funky ways. Sometimes it increased costs, some ways it reduced costs because there was fewer elective surgeries. So we all thought it was going to be a lot more expensive, but it actually seems to be down. And then we thought now, once COVID is starting to lift, everyone will be rushing back to the hospitals to have all those elective surgeries done, but you can only do so many surgeries, and they have staffing problems and all those, so we're not seeing a huge increase in costs. So I think this is a very, conservatively high percentage. I think it will be lower than that, but there's also, and I know the Cape Cod Municipal Group also does have a reserve fund, but we're sort of anxious about you because you only use that once. So if you use your reserve, it's gone, and rates will continue to go up. So there's like a balancing game about using trying to judge where the reserve fund should be, have an optimal amount, and kind of set rates that will get you there. So there's a lot of factors that go into it. So we do retiree health rates get set separately from active employee health rates. And the retiree rates were done earlier this year, and they were just like 3%, 3 point something percent. So I think 8%'s safe, and hopefully it'll come down, and then we'll look at other options.
So for the fiscal year 24 budget,
Yeah.
excuse me, it says a 3.7% increase. Can you remind me what a typical increase is?
That's a great question. Look at this. So this is our increases over the last few years. So, yes.
Sorry, before we go forward, I just have one more question.
Yeah, of course.
A reduction in school choice costs and savings a reduction in school choice costs, but we also just talked about how we also have a reduction in revenue from school choice in.
Yes.
So are they canceling each other out?
No,
Or?
we're actually, our costs are going down faster than our revenue is going down.
Okay.
So we're in it. So I'll need to check, but since Monomoy started, and I'll have this at a future meeting, we have a higher percentage of students in Harwich and Chatham attending public school. A higher percentage of them are staying at Monomoy than have it since we were founded. So that's more kids are staying here, and yet kids from outside are still choosing to come here. So that's all good.
Thank you, sorry.
So this, Ms. Rogers, to your question, this was me just trying to put, so these are all our increases and our budgets since the beginning, and it shows in green what our percentage increases have been. So this kind of craziness here, where it went down and then it went up a huge amount. Well, the huge amount is the high school roof debt coming online. So we started paying the high school roof debt And that's why we saw that big increase. I don't know why it went down. I'm not sure if that was just an accounting thing, if they changed the way they were doing the budget. But since then, actually, for a few years, the increases are around 3-4%. And then since then, they kind of leveled off.
9%.
And so this was, going back 5 years, this increase is a little high. Going back 10 years, it's kind of average.
Thank you.
That dip, Michael, was us going into full regionalization. So
yes, that's great.
So there was a little staffing saving that happened during that period of time.
Thank you very much. So, so we'll talk more about these items, and you remember this from last year's process. So we'll talk more about this as we go through, and when we come to the budget workshop, we'll talk about some of these. So we've had requests from the principals, and to be honest, we're still kind of working through these requests, and I'm still getting a couple more ones as we go. But so far, the budget requests that we've included in the budget are in green, and the ones that are not there are in red. So the ones that are there are, the major one is 2 new positions, sort of instructional coaches. Those are positions that will work with staff from grade 6 through 12. One will be on ELA and one will be on math, and that's to provide a curriculum support and professional development and support for teachers in those subject areas. And that's about strengthening instruction and curriculum and improving consistency from the middle school right up into the high school. We're also trying to get somebody to be a theatre house manager, so we've added that as a position for that's not a huge amount of money, but it will be really helpful to have somebody to make sure the projector is working and the sound is all working, because systems in there are relatively complicated and we don't really have anybody able to manage those systems. So when they break, we're in trouble. And so with somebody who was actually responsible for that will be a huge benefit, because it's amazing space, and the more we can use it and the more effectively we can use it, it'll be great.
I have a question
Ms.
about
James.
theater house manager. So it's for Monomoy's needs, but the manager would also be available for like Reaching Heart, who's here tonight?
Yes.
So it could be part of then of building into the revenue, right?
Right, so it'll help the revenue stream, but it also, I think, helps us just do better play productions. So we had a fall production, and I think what people should understand is we had a consistent house manager pre-COVID, and during COVID we weren't using the auditorium. Nobody was going into big public spaces, and that person had to get a real job, and we emerged from COVID without a theater manager. In fact, our first time that we used the theater in over a year was sort of our opening day meeting with faculty, and we go to turn on the overhead projector that showed up in the budget presentation, and it was like, it's not been working, and then it's like, okay, well, let's get the sound system up. Well, nobody was left that understood how to operate the soundboard or the light board. So we hired somebody. He came in and in one day was able to get us back up and running. We also want to do a renovation of the lighting and sound system at the middle school theater. So this person would be able to do that. So we have monies that are sitting in the budget to have a technical person on all the different productions. That person is the technical person, and this is cobbling together a little bit more funds so that it can be enough money to hopefully keep somebody around with us consistently to then build the revenue stream and make it a better space for not just the school but the community too.
Okay, so would it make sense then, hearing that they're also going to help at the middle school, do we need a MRHS? Do you need to also say what is it, MRMS? Is that the house? So it sounds like they're going to be doing.
Right.
So that would make more sense if you're spreading them over 2
Yeah.
things. Okay.
Ms. Tully, sorry.
So just a question, so what I hear is there's a need for a technical director where there hasn't been one. There has been a house manager, or theater house manager, correct?
Not.
Not since
we-
pre-COVID.
Right, so not since pre-COVID,
Yeah.
but you're squishing, you're combining
Probably
two
could.
different positions? Is that,
I mean,
No, I think you just used two different terms.
yeah, I think you're just.
They
mixing
they
it.
had a house manager pre-COVID, didn't have one during COVID. Now we need one back.
okay.
And-
But this position is tech heavy. It's someone
Yeah.
who needs to understand that. So
Yes.
a suggestion might be, depending on how you want to cast this net, someone who is theatrically inclined, I think, might respond to a technical director
Yeah.
title.
No, we've got the person.
Oh, you have the person?
We have the person, we just want to make sure that we're able to keep
Funding,
the
right,
person.
got it.
Right,
Never
exactly,
mind.
yep.
Okay.
We've got the right person.
Got
Yep.
it, got it, okay.
So a robotics lab computer, we just have to replace those at the end of the lease. And we are looking at, sorry, that's not true. So the middle school robotics lab computers, they're old and they just need new computers. So I think it's $7,000-8,000 for that. We are also planning to upgrade the wireless access points at the middle school. So we're doing that this year at the high school, and that is partially funded from E-rate. So I don't know if you know what E-rate is. It's a federal reimbursement program for school technology. So I think they reimburse us up to 60% on some projects. So this will that really helps us get these projects done. So that's the one we're hoping to do next year. So some of the items that have not made it into the budget yet are the high school, so the principal has requested replacing some of the common area furniture, these soft seats that is here at the high school. That's not in the budget at the moment. In Harwich, they have a math IA position as an instructional assistant, and that the person who's doing it right now is awesome, and they're almost essentially working as a math interventionist, and they would like to make that position a math interventionist position. But we do already have those positions in the school, so whether or not we need a third one, and whether or not it's a priority is the sort of stuff we're talking about right now, and also special education need, teacher need at Harwich. Similarly, at Chatham, it's math and reading interventionist, and increasing special education teacher by 0.5. We have one who's there who's not 0.5 right now. We'd like to increase it to 1.0 just to reflect student needs.
Question. Ms. Games.
Only because I have a visual back here.
Yeah, they look terrible. I know.
They
I saw
do,
them.
they do look really rough. I'm
Yeah.
just wondering, I don't know the quality of these. Can they not be covered, or do we, like?
Half of the price to replace them.
Okay, so
Yes.
you have to replace them, they can't be,
No, they can't.
they can or can't?
They could.
I
It's
think,
just-
they
yeah,
should.
we're exploring that. We're exploring a particular avenue the superintendent has identified.
Okay, all right.
So.
Ms. Tully.
Yeah. About the budget requests, are these carried over from the budget requests last year, or are
So-
these like fresh ones?
So these are all fresh ones. Yeah, so we actually did, in fact, that's a great point, and we can maybe at the budget workshop, actually, I'll give a quick update on where we are last year. So all the numbers we did, all the items we either funded or we kind of withdrew for one reason or another, except instructional coaches, actually, they were on last year and have kind of been sort of brought over.
And the budget workshop is January 12th, as a reminder.
Are you asking or telling me?
I just was told.
All right, fantastic, thank you very much.
Can you clarify that? So
Yeah.
you said that the instructional assistants were carried over? and
Yeah,
that's
so that
what's
was a
showing up
request.
here?
That was a request we included in our list last year.
Yeah.
And we've so it wasn't funded last year, so it stayed on the list, and now it's reached, as our number one priority for this year.
Okay, but it's not,
The-
oh, no,
the
this, that
instructional
is,
functions.
that's what
Sorry,
is
yes,
included.
that is included.
Got it,
Yep.
okay.
All right.
Right.
So these are the.
Oh,
Sure,
Sharon.
that
Missed
question?
out? Sorry, Sharon, I can't see you, so.
Oh,
I know, I know. All of the stuff in the green, well, most of it is very understandable to me. I'm just concerned if any of these are becoming administrative positions. I don't think it's a good idea to have people fill roles that are needed, makes sense, but if they're not principal or anything that are administrative, I hope, could you elaborate on if any of them are administrative positions?
Well, so the instructional coaches are somewhere between administration and teaching, right? So they're kind of on a level with an assistant principal. It's kind of like that. They're providing instructional leadership through kind of across the middle school and the high school. So
are they going to be involved with evaluations?
yes, they could be involved with evaluations.
Okay. You might have a bargaining issue there, I'm not sure. I think that we have had difficulty when we go to bring these to the select people and all, because what is happening is our and I'm not saying Monomoy specifically, although that's the only influence I have, is that there are so many more layers of administration happening everywhere. And that's hard for the average person to understand about. A lot of these things we used to do with stipends or just having the position.
Yes.
I don't know. Bargaining issues with the teachers is not what I'm trying to address. I'm just trying to address the place we put it in our budget, because it's one or the other. It's administrative or it's not.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it. I mean, I'm trying, so administration, sorry.
I was going to say, I think at some point, I think what would be helpful is, I think we do need to have a finance subcommittee meeting. We have that on the books for next Tuesday, and I think, based on conversations there, we may decide that it might behoove the school committee to have an executive session before our next meeting, depending, again, I think there's some things that, that you might want to go, first discuss if it's personnel related in the executive session.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. All right, moving on. So capital requests. So when we presented the capital plan, these essentially are the items that we said we'd be trying to do with the general fund this year. I think that, from my perspective, the big ticket items are getting the external lighting outside the middle school and then updating the PA systems. They're both driven by safety requirements for students and staff and everyone in the building. So I think they are a priority. We've taken, the MSBA applications is not on there, as I mentioned the last school committee presentation. The MSBA is not accepting applications for roof or boiler replacements for this year.
Unacceptable.
So that'll be back on the agenda for next year. And then this is exactly, Mr. Terry, this is exactly your point. So this is just what you were saying about federal funding. I'm just putting this in here to make sure we all remember that these positions are out there, and that although we will be able to continue to fund them for next year, what happens after that is something we should be thinking about.
Thank you, Michael. When I was younger, as a little kid, they called me Mr. Terry.
Mr. Terry. Sometimes I do that, Terry.
I like that.
Certain ring to it.
Yeah.
Ms.
So,
Russell
yeah,
Terry.
I just have a question, Michael, and it's just, I guess, so I know the state, the legislation, there's a whole lot of talk about, I know the Senate President, Karen Spilka, is trying to move like mental health legislation, and I'm just curious, because I'm looking at this list, and there's, I guess, 4 tied, what I would, you might make an argument for?
Yes,
Okay.
100%. And so, so I've been talking to Melissa McGuire about this, because there is a lot more money coming from the state for mental health needs. So that may be one area that we look to down the line, if that money does come to fruition. We may be able to use that to help fund some of these positions. Absolutely.
Okay. Good.
Thank you, Michael.
All right. So I hate to tell you this, I'm only like halfway through.
Oh, wow.
Right. So I'm slightly more than halfway through. So one of the things that drives the budget and the assessment is enrollment. And so some of these numbers are just coming out, but this is our enrollment and kind of projections based on our current enrollment, as we see students moving through the grades. So for each town, I've provided the foundation enrollment, which is in dark blue for Harwich and green for Chatham. And foundation enrollment is essentially all the kids who live in the two towns, whether they attend Monomoy or not. So if they're going to Nauset or they're going to charter school, they're included in our foundation enrollment. And then the light blue line for Harwich and the yellow line for Chatham is the actual students who are attending Monomoy. So you can see for Chatham, those two lines have got really close. So that means a lot of students who live in Chatham are coming to Monomoy, which is great. And you can see actually as well that actually looking from FY23 into FY24, we're expecting a small increase in Chatham foundation enrollment, but maybe a slight decrease in the number of students actually attending Monomoy, and that's just to do with grade configurations. And those lines are quite close. They're staying fairly parallel for Harwich. But we have how these numbers will understand. I'm still kind of finalising the information for this year and how that information affects us going into the, So I have this, so when we do the assessment, when we're calculating how much each town has to pay, how we split the money is, for some categories, based on enrollment. So the state does a calculation for the minimum required contribution. That impacts the assessment. And they actually use the number of students in the district right now. That's the FY23. And then we do a further calculation for some of the money that remains. And we use a 3-year average, and that will be based in FY20, 21, and 22. So from 20 to 21, we saw a big reduction in Chatham and in Harwich. But as a percentage reduction, it was bigger in Chatham. So because they're a smaller amount, and looks kind of on there, they look kind of similar. Maybe Harwich is a little steeper, but as a percentage of the Chatham students, Chatham saw a bigger reduction. And that continues to influence the assessment because it's still in that average. Does that make sense? So even though as we go into it, we'll be like, oh, actually the number of kids in Chatham has gone up, but we're still seeing money flow, that assessment flow from Chatham to Harwich. We're still seeing a bigger increase in Harwich, and that's because of that 3-year trend. That said, we're still collating information, and those state calculations impact the budget as well, so that might help to impact the assessment, so that might help to offset our calculations. And this is so the blue line here is the foundation enrollment, and I've just highlighted this because this is the number that the state will use for this year, and that we'll use the averages of prior years. And then the orange bar is the actual minimum required contribution from Chatham here on the left, and it's Harwich on the right. So this just kind of shows more of the kind of trends that I was talking about, where you can see the reductions in enrollment and how that plays out in the minimum required contribution. So we can go into more depth on this at future meetings. So if you have any questions now, feel free to ask. But as we'll go into more details. As I start to get the actual numbers, we can start to go through that in more detail and see how it's actually playing out. So just to catch you up on what I've presented so far. So I've presented where we are with the budget, and now this is me kind of talking about how we're going to pay for that budget. So a chunk of it is paid for by the state, and in my estimates right now, I'm seeing an increase in our funding from the state and from a couple of other revenue streams. So I am estimating an increase in Chapter 70 funding. That's the main mechanism by which the state funds education. The state is still implementing the Student Opportunity Act, and I believe that is going to lead to an increase in our funding, particularly around special education. There's an increase in funding for special education. It may be more than this, but because what also plays into that is things like the property evaluations of both town actually is factored in. Actually, the estimated revenue for each town is also factored in. So there's a lot of things that go into that, but I believe we will see an increase. Excess and deficiency. So that is basically, that's our reserves and how much of our reserves we plan to use. So we've been using $800,000 of our reserves. Our reserves are normally around $2 million. So using $800,000 every year is, you know, we can't do it forever. We'll eventually run out of money if we keep doing that. So our auditor has advised us to start, you know, they're not worried, but they've said, you know, Michael, you really can't keep using $800,000 because you're going to run out of your surplus. So I'd like to start to reduce that. You know, I think we should always be using some of it, but I think we should reduce it a little. And this year, we have a big increase in our interest. So I've forecast $200,000 in interest, and that's an increase of $185,000, and that's because the treasurer has invested the money in treasury bonds. So, and those are guaranteed returns. So they tell us what rate we're going to get before we invest them. So we've invested those, and we'll receive those funds next year. And so so we're able to use those funds to offset the excess and deficiency. Any questions on all that before I jump on? All right, so here's the draft assessments that we have right now. So the way it works, and again, we can go into more detail on, you know, how the whole this is a new assessment methodology where each town pays for its elementary school first. So first, each town is assessed the minimum contribution that is set by the state, and then everything above that is assessed using that complicated assessment formula. At the moment, just to make you aware, so we are carrying $140,000 for preschool. At the moment, we have it sitting in Chatham for the budget. Where that ends up depends on numbers that we're just getting right now. But you know, we think we may have to increase a section. Whether or not we can do it at Chatham, whether or not it's at Harwich, those are all things we're going to discuss over the coming months as we get more numbers. Transportation costs are going up. We are paying our drivers more. We're seeing an increase in some of those costs. Capital overall is going up. Why that's down for Chatham though is because last year, or for this year, we had the Chatham roof. We were hoping to fund the Chatham roof project. So that was a Chatham elementary project, so that's all going to Chatham. So they were paying for all of that. Now we don't have any projects planned for Chatham and Harwich. They're all district level. So both towns are splitting all those costs. So even though there's an increase overall, the increase is mostly carried by Harwich. And
Mike?
debt is down, sorry.
No, I'm sorry, raise my hand. The $140,000 for the CES preschool, if CES
Yes.
doesn't have a preschool, that 140 we're down 140?
Well, so it depends. So yeah, so it depends what happens with the preschool. So right now, so preschool, we may end up needing extra sections in Harwich, or we may need to add a section or two in Chatham.
So that 140 we
So
can
it
move
could
to
end up,
Harwich
it
out.
could end up, it could be a complete, we might not need either, but
Okay.
Melissa tells me that's not going to happen. We're definitely going to need something. So it might end up over in Harwich, or it might end up in Chatham.
Okay, thank you.
And then debt's down because debt's basically, you know, that's how much we're paying for the high school. And it's on a schedule of debt payments over 20 years or so, and that just goes down every year just because of the way the debt payment was structured at the start when the money was first loaned. So the way I sort of see it is that money, we're kind of moving that in to pay for some of the capital items. So rather than just cutting it, that's helping to fund a additional capital investment. Overall, right now, the way I have all these different forecasts and estimates I've made, I have 4.2% increase for Harwich. That's a lot. So I think that would be a tough sell to the select board for Harwich. Definitely, like, you know, as you mentioned, Jessica, in that compared to previous years, I think the select board would give us a hard time. Is it a fight worth having? It might well be, but I think we're a few more, you know, meetings before we make that decision. 3% for Chatham, I mean, is a relatively small amount of money compared to a Harwich, but it's still 3% at $260,000. And I just wanted to, just before I wrap up, you'll be happy to hear. Yes, Superintendent Pope.
Oh, Mr. Russell,
Mr.
You
Terry.
can call me Mr. Terry.
Yeah, thanks.
Mrs. Terry?
No,
Russell
they
Terry.
call me Mr.
Yeah,
That gets.
they call me Mr.
Michael, before I forget my question.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I probably need a mini tutorial myself because this is the second or third time. And I think this is terrific. The slides, Michael, are really right on, but I'm not totally, the recent vote in Chatham
Yes.
Select Board, they will pick up the costs, and here's where I go wrong. Costs of their Chatham Elementary School for reasons we've discussed for 2 years.
Yep.
Okay. Now, I see here, let's just say, Jackie mentioned the 140,000, and we don't know where it's gonna head, and it's preschool. Say there was a section needed there. Wouldn't that money be picked up at some time by the, I don't want to say Select Board of Chatham, but that, they would own that?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
I think the way to look at it is if we have a cohort of students that's large enough for Chatham that makes sense to run a program in Chatham, we're budgeting to be able to run the program in Chatham. So we've let Alex and Jill know that this could vary, like if we can have the program, at some point we'll have absolute numbers. Melissa will give a presentation like she gave last year that we can either say, we have enough, like if it's only for children and there aren't enough children to run the program in Chatham, we can absorb those children in the programs that would have to be in Harwich. We even know this year, mid-year, we are likely going to need to bolster preschool programming that's happening in our district, just based on the numbers that are there. And again, it's, we're gonna have to look at, are they Harwich children, are they Chatham children? And if they're enough, we wanna bring the preschool back to Chatham if we've got the kids to have a core group there.
If I just, for myself, if I were to cut to the chase and say that the vote in Chatham activated a plan that will allow expenses to run the Chatham Elementary School after it's all said and done in the spring and everyone votes yes, nay, they pick up that number.
Yes.
If we're running the program in Chatham,
Oh, no, I'm not talking just about this program. I'm talking about anything.
Right.
Yes.
Got it, okay.
Yeah.
Does everyone else nod their, are we getting this or just me? Because I can stay back.
Yes.
I'm hearing Michael's voice saying,
Sorry.
So we're on the same page. Thank you. Okay,
Yes.
good, okay.
But it's a really, it's a really important point though, because, so when you see a small increase for Chatham, you think, well, you can just, I give Chatham more stuff, because the town of Chatham may be willing for a bigger increase. But we have to make sure that our decisions, for example, with the preschool, is driven by educational needs, not just by, where the assessment will fall. So we still need to make sure that we're making the right decision about, for those students, is it right to have them in Chatham? Is that the right place for them? Or, can they be better served in Harwich? And try not to be swayed by, well, it'll be a much easier sell if it's Chatham, because their assessment's already not that high, versus it'll be a much harder sell in Harwich.
I remember one of the questions that I got before the vote last year was sort of around that, was like, well, why don't you just move the preschool over to Chatham entirely, and then Harwich gets a break on their assessment if it's all operating within the Chatham school? And that goes to that speaks to that point of like, well, is that the right decision for the Harwich children then to do that?
Exactly, yeah. So we got to be driven by our, educational priorities and what's best for the students.
Great, thank you.
So then I just wanted to highlight, so if we were still using the old assessment method, where basically everything was just split up on percentages, it didn't matter which school students were at, basically Harwich would be paying $650,000 more. So that 4% increase is a 4% off the new assessment methodology. So if it was, if we were using the old method, it would be even higher. And I think, so what's next? We'll continue to review priorities with principals. We're finalising the capital plan costs, so, some of those are estimates. We're just trying to get a solid figures on how much they're likely to cost. I'm developing those 5-year projections, and I've mentioned this multiple times now, but the health insurance numbers, the state information, that should all be coming out February, March, maybe April, and we should also be getting those updated school choice and charter tuition numbers for this year, but that'll influence our decision about budgeting for next year.
I'm like, were you looking? All right. Any final questions for Michael? Comments, concerns? Topics on graphics.
Yeah, I will
Great
leave,
job.
if you like. I will leave. And if you have, any questions, any concerns, if you want to go into more detail on something, I'm happy to take a call or email or whatever, anything.
And Finance Sub will be meeting.
Yes.
And we will report out as well. And then our budget workshop that we all thoroughly enjoyed last year, and I don't mean that sarcastically, we really did, is January 12th, 2023, and I'm presuming it's probably going to be here upstairs or something like it was. Okay, great.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael. And
Don't go anywhere.
don't go anywhere because approval of the Monomoy Regional High School Cultural Committee donation to Global Giving. Michael McMillan, Business Manager.
Yes. So this is a student activity donation. So the student activity funds are student funds. They can do pretty much whatever they like with it, but because interestingly, as a district, we are not allowed to give money to charity. So we are not allowed to use state funds to get public funds to charities. However, because it's student activity, those funds are not ours, they're the students, they can, give them to charity, but just the state recommendation is we just let you, get your approval, or let you know that it's happening. I can't remember if we have a vote here. Do we have that one?
Yeah, we got a vote here.
Oh, yeah, so we have it just to get your approval, make sure you're okay with it before it happens.
Do we have a motion to approve? Ms. Henderson.
I move to approve a donation in the amount of $164 from the Culture Committee of MRHS to Global Giving.
And a second?
Second.
And questions? And roll call, Ms. Stout?
Aye.
Ms. Tully?
Aye.
Ms. Games?
Aye.
Ms. Gray?
Aye.
Ms. Rogers?
Aye.
Mr. Terry?
Aye.
Ms. Henderson?
Aye.
And the chair is an aye. All right.
Awesome, can I go now? Can I leave that?
Yes.
All right.
Okay. Subcommittee representatives liaison reports, seeing none, because I didn't look. Superintendent's report.
I'll be quick because I know after 9:30, no one wants to listen to me, but
What did you say?
Will you do that?
we had a portrait of the graduate development team meeting last night where we were honing in on the dispositions, mindsets, skill sets that we would like to see developed in our students over their time with us in our district, and that work is moving along. I'm very grateful to all of those that have been participating on that group. In terms of a quick recognition, I would like to recognize the Harwich Garden Club that's going into their 90-year celebration, and they have an initiative to plant 90 trees in town. They would like to donate 20 trees to Harwich Elementary School to have some trees around the new playground. Of course, remember the new playground is a town playground, so we will be working with the town on the location of those trees.
Great.
That's
Thank you, Dr. Carpenter.
Great.
All right. And we've had the presentation of the warrants, and so I would welcome a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Roll call, Ms. Stout?
Aye.
Ms. Tully?
Aye.
Ms. Gaines?
Aye.
Ms. Gray? Aye. Ms. Rogers?
Aye.
Mr. Russell?
Aye.
Ms. Henderson?
Aye.
The chair is an aye, and we are adjourning at 9:43 p.m. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.